Oh, yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boy Jack here at the Irish Hotspur. Here to bring you that Friday fan show, everybody. Please come on and have your say. I do want everybody to come on and, feel free to break down that response from the club to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. Feel free to come on and break down this Man City game. There's a big Man City preview that, of course, we have. There's also an opportunity now for everybody to reflect on this January transfer window, maybe what went wrong, also maybe things that perhaps you went right. Maybe you're just really happy to have Pedro Porro through the door. Plenty of things to chat about over with me, please, everybody. So come on and have your say. Really looking forward to this little chat. We do also, as well, have a big game against Man City to look forward to, and it is going to be a game without Antonio Conte, everybody. So please, have your thoughts for him and his recovery. I think it did go quite well. Successful surgery by the looks of things, and being the beast that he is, the absolute animal Antonio Conte is. He's, I think, going to make a return, like something like maybe after 2 games or something like that. Maybe after 3, maybe after that AC Milan game. But seriously, he could be back sooner than expected. Some people have even been able to recover and be back to work like within like 2 to 3 weeks of it, which is pretty impressive, if you will. So it might not be out, as long as we expect. But everybody, I'm kind of going to go through some of the topics here today that we could be chatting about, and then I'm going to bring on my first guest, and then hopefully anybody else that has that link, any of you fan show members, please come on and join me. It's pretty lengthy discussion, pretty lengthy chats that we can have about everything regarding the board, everything regarding the supporters trust questions, everything regarding Man City, and all that good stuff, everybody. So please do come on and have your say. So these are some of the questions I have lined up. This one I think was coming from one of the debate shows that we did this week. 3 out and 2 in. Do we look stronger or weaker after this January transfer window? I feel like if you were to compare it to last season's January transfer window, it doesn't really feel like nearly as complete, or it doesn't feel nearly as good, just because I don't know, like it was the outs that were really kind of what made January, last year so great for me, because we got to get rid of Dele Alli, we got rid of I think the likes of Gio Lo Celso. We were able to move on, a lot of players that I just kind of thought were a distraction to Spurs as well, were just also maybe a distraction for Conte, perhaps in what he was trying to instill into the squad with the tactics, as well as the mentality of the dressing room, all those sort of things. Like, we got rid of a lot of players who I think we needed to in that January transfer window last season. And while as this, January transfer window, I feel like we got rid of players that maybe, yeah, like it was good to ship on, but I feel like maybe getting rid of Brian Hill was a bit unnecessary. Perhaps he really wanted the move, so there's not a lot I could do about that. I guess Jed Spence sort of needed to go, but we kind of all thought maybe he's been sort of a bit, unfairly treated, at least in his case. Matt Doherty has actually been released on a free contract, or basically had his contract mutually terminated. Everybody, I will get into that and kind of get my thoughts and feelings on that regard, because some people seem to think that it was a bit sort of harsh. Other people found it to be ruthless, kind of in the good sort of way. Other people just sort of think it reflects kind of Spurs's ineptitude, or Spurs's sort of kind of lack of forethought ahead of time on things. So let me know what you think on that, everybody. And 3 out and 2 in. Do we look stronger or weaker? Even if we do look stronger, do we look as strong as we should after this January transfer window, is kind of another thing. And so that sort of leads me on to regrets of the January transfer window. For me, quickly, I think one of the big ones is certainly that center back, and it has to be the ones like specifically, not just like, going after Gavardiol or players like that obviously weren't available this January window. I'm really upset that Spurs didn't go after players like maybe Zabarnyi, who they actually highly rated in the past and scouted before, and then actually let go to Bournemouth. I understand like the argument from some people that like a guy like Zabarnyi, a bit unproven, very, very young as well. Maybe Antonio Conte might not like him, or maybe might not want to use him. I just feel like anything walks into this defense at this moment in time. And I don't really care if that player maybe might not actually be a starter in the future or anything like that. I do feel like that player will walk into this 11 right away. And it could be Harry Maguire. It could be Zabarnyi. It could really be virtually anyone, I think, that could practically walk into that backline ahead of Moon Boots, ahead of Davies, and even in some games, I hate to say it, as much as he's been okay this season, ahead of the likes of Longley as well. So everybody, let me know kind of your regrets of this January transfer window. One of them for me certainly has to be Zabarnyi. I think that one was a major one, just because, like I said before, we scouted him, we knew a lot about him. Fee was only around 20 million. It feels like a Kim Min Jae type situation again, where something like, a real opportunity lost, someone that could end up being like really, amazing and, kicks off, right away, it turns out to be an absolute player the moment he starts, in the Premier League. And that could be kind of similar to how Kim and Jay, I think, started things off in the Serie A. So I do wonder if this Sabarny one is going to be somewhat similar, everybody. And then Spurs have close to a full 11 players out on loan. Do you reckon the majority of them need to be sold this summer? That's basically, regarding all the players we have out on loan. It's kind of I know, really kind of a sort of mixed question there, but basically think about as many of the players that we do have out on loan, any of them that you think still have a future at Spurs. I sort of might think that Spence obviously has still a lot of time here. I think maybe if even life after Conte, he could still probably have a chance here. Also, as well, like it's not like, Conte, I think, is completely writing him off. I think he's just wanting him to get experience and wanting him to like show that he can prove it elsewhere with other teams and other leagues. And I guess Spence is out there to do that. So it's only kind of I guess it's a watch this space sort of scenario when it comes to Jet Spence. And, don't really panic too much about it is what I would say. Brian Hill, does he have a future with Spurs? It's interesting under Antonio Conte. It's difficult to know because he seems like all he wants to do is just play as much as possible. Brian Hill, I understand that. He's very, very young, of course, so he would want to play as much as possible. But the other thing, too, is that he's been given kind of, really good compliments by the likes of Antonio Conte. But I feel like, with Antonio Conte, it's been weird where it's like he's been complimenting him when he's come on and played, but then hasn't really rewarded him, let's say, with very much playing time when maybe given opportunities. And sort of like, I don't know, it's a mixed situation with Hill. I just feel like he's taken the chances he's been given. He just hasn't really been rewarded for it, but he's also not really had any moments where the club has come out and said anything bad about him, or Conte has come out and said anything bad about him. Everything's been kind of, pretty nice, regarding Hill. Even Stellini, said in the beginning of the window that he would have been kept in this season. So I don't know. I'm a bit lost in that regard. Maybe he has a future, but the rest of these guys, I really don't know if they really do have a future. So it does speak to kind of the past mistakes of, the January window, and also the past mistakes that, this club as well as Hitchin and plenty of people have made with the budget. Because I think also something's been reported where only one player is left from that Mourinho summer. And I believe that might have been Steve Hitchens last summer, at least fully in charge. And that was only one player left that Spurs are actually still using on a consistent basis, and that's Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. And it's actually astonishing to see that, because that actually, again, would have been the season, funny enough, that we would have signed Kim Min-jae there, everybody. Doherty's contract terminated in mutual agreement. Thoughts on the decision? I actually find this to be a peculiar one. I find it to be interesting, mostly because a lot of people seem to think that it was harsh on Doherty or whatever. I don't find it to be that harsh on Doherty. I didn't really want him here any longer in the first place. I don't think once Pedro Porro came, there really wasn't much of a place, I think, for Doherty any longer. I already thought Jet Spence was probably a better wingback going forward, but that's kind of, that's just an extra point. But Pedro Porro, we knew was going to be the more attack-minded option, the much better option going forward. And then you probably thought about it like, would you want maybe another sort of slightly different kind of player as a wingback, someone who's a bit more defensively sound? And I think Emerson obviously fits that bill, where Doherty just simply doesn't. He's not very good defensively, doesn't know how to get up and down, or doesn't, isn't able. It's not like he doesn't know, he isn't able to get up and down like a lot of wingbacks or a lot of fullbacks can in the modern era. It's just he just lost his place, I think, the moment that Pedro Porro came in. Because before, when it was between Emerson and Doherty, you can make the case that Doherty, right, was the better one going forward, much more competent in kind of the box than Emerson was, and things like that. But now they have Pedro Porro. There's just really not much of a need for Doherty any longer. And also the fact that we could have made some kind of money out of it, I really don't think so. Like, 31 years old, and wasn't it the case he only had like a year left on his contract or whatever? It was like 31 years old. He's already had a major injury, isn't favored by Antonio Conte, never really had a convincing, sort of spell under Spurs, except for last season under that kind of, 6-game period. But he's never exactly convincingly made a case for himself above Emerson and above Serge Aurier. And most people don't even really rate Emerson or Serge Aurier. So if you're finding yourself consistently behind Emerson or Serge Aurier, it says, I think, says a lot about you as a player than I think it does about the managers that might be coaching you or picking the team. Because honestly, I don't think Doherty was really ever better than Serge Aurier. That isn't saying a lot, and I don't think he's really better than Emerson ever. And that isn't saying a lot either. But that's just my strong opinion. Yeah, and so let me know if you disagree in that regard, and also let me know if the club did get it wrong. Because at the end of the day, they probably also came to the kind of a panic decision where, yeah, too many players out on loan due to their own mistakes in the past and not wanting to deal with it and take the loss. And now this time they were forced to take the loss. So is it really them being actually ruthless, or is it them just being kind of just stupid and then just kind of making just silly mistakes as per usual, kind of in the market? Pedro Porro available and the rest of the squad is fit. Very, very good news. Would you pick Pedro Porro in this game upcoming against Man City? I certainly would. Let me know if you wouldn't. Let me know if you go ahead with Emerson. As much as I just defended the guy, I think I'm ready, I'm ready to I'm ready to bring in Pedro Porro. That's for sure. I do want him to play as soon as possible, and I think he could bring so much to this game, especially when we are trying to maybe break out of that sort of press that Man City will put us in. I think Emerson can get is more likely probably to put us in bad situations when he's being kind of pressed into tight areas than Pedro Porro. Pedro Porro is so much more composed than I think the rest of our players, even the rest of our backline, really, when under pressure in this. But it's a big game for him, that's for sure. And then Conte's surgery went successful, or is successful, and he's set to return after the Milan match. Thoughts on that, and maybe well wishes for Conte, everybody. And then, of course, we have the questions from the supporters trust and the answers from the club here. I could zoom out a little bit if you like, but I kind of just thought maybe for those viewing here, it'd be easier for them to be able to pick it up, whether they're looking at it through their phone or their laptop or whatever. But these are all the questions and the answers. If you want to come on and have your say about that, feel free, and I would love to have a chat with you about it. I'm going to give kind of my own response, and I think Dave's going to give his own response in due time on this channel. But it's good if you guys want to come on and have your say, and I'd be happy to have a good chat with you about it. If I were to summarize quickly on the first question, I find the first question actually to be a very relevant question. Some people, I've even called it a bit open-ended, but I don't really find that to be too much of a criticism if it's open-ended, because it's, with the first question that they've, delivered to them. It's okay if they want to kind of like get, a big broad answer. I feel like with Spurs, though, in true nature, they kind of gave a very they gave a very detailed answer, let's say, when it came to everything off the pitch and how all the revenue streams and everything like that will contribute to sort of, success on the pitch. But I don't think they really answered anything having to do with that part right there that says, their long-term strategy for success, both on and off the pitch. I feel like they answered the off the pitch part. Whether you think they answered it well or not, I think they definitely answered it in some detail. But it felt like with on the pitch, like they just didn't. Like, I feel like they could have just simply said, in 5 years' time, we would like to say that, Spurs are consistently challenging, in the top four for, the Champions League and challenging for domestic trophies or something like that. Or like in 10 years' time, Spurs would like to say that we would have at least, a Premier League, title, or an FA Cup, or like, I don't know. It just felt like they could have answered or committed to some kind of like actual tangible, kind of thing, if you ask me. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. And I know, like always, I'm not going to give, as harsh of answers as other people. That's just kind of where I stand on things. But that's how I sort of saw it, is I did see that opening question to be kind of a very fair question delivered at the board, but it was a bit open-ended, so they could have kind of left it, maybe a bit more specific, so they couldn't kind of dodge or weave their way out of it. At the same time, though, I do feel like it was frustrating to see that they didn't answer, I think, that initial part of on the pitch, like what do you want to, succeed, and also, how do you judge, the current success, or against those measurements. I feel like that again, it's just saying like, this is an opportunity for you guys to, admit to any mistakes. I don't think they admitted to any mistakes in this question for the most part. I feel like they admitted to mistakes in the second question, which is a bit odd again, where it's like where they were maybe given more opportunities to admit to mistakes in this question. They weirdly admitted to mistakes in the second question. So I don't know, but this is a long winded response and it's more of a fan show. I'll get into it in some sort of other video of some kind, everybody. But I would love for you guys to come on and have your say, and we can just scroll right on through this, and have a good chat about it. I'm going to get to the chat here, though, and see what you guys are talking about, see what you guys are up to these days. And then we'll bring on Mia. And then please, anybody else wants to come on, hit that link and feel free to come on and have a chat with me. We have Chris here in the house. Afternoon, people. Don't forget to smash those likes and get your super chats in. Come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Come on, you Harris Army. You absolute legend, Chris. Phil P. Happy Friday, Tottenham lovers and friends. The so-called answers to the trust questions just show how little Enoch think of the fans. Disgrace. Phil, I agree with the fact that I do feel like it was, so-called answers. I kind of agree with that. I think some of them were like there was no answer of which I did think was like a whole answer, if you get what I mean. Like I described with the first one, like I think they answered part of it, but then they left one part of it really, really like empty and really didn't address it at all. And then in the second question, I think they did a bit of a better job, but they sort of answered it. I felt like, how would you put it, like sarcastically, or they sort of kind of answered it, I think, with a bit of a tone. And then you kind of go just further down, and it's sort of like a lack of detail in the answers. I don't know. Like I agree, like a lot of sort of non-answers for the most part. But also, I would say some of the questions could have been phrased a bit better too. But I agree with the fact that there's a lot of sort of non-answers. Big yourself up, Phil P. You absolute legend. And also, Dermot's in the house. Come on, you Spurs. Woo! Big up, Dermot. Tottenham till I die. Leaving Enoch out. Big yourself up, brother. We got Craig Bowler in here saying, Don Paratici, I have a plan. I will stick to the plan. I won't be pressured into buying players for the sake of it. Now, kiss the ring. What did you make of his video, Craig? I felt like he comes off well, like Paratici, like in his videos. I think he does come off well. My thing is that it also similar to kind of how these these board questions were. I felt like they were a bit of non-answers, for the most part, like from Paratici in like some cases. Like I thought it was just sort of like, yeah, like he has a good presence on camera. He looked good and everything. He didn't look too nervous or for the most part, but I felt like the questions were a bit too catered, a bit too kind of sort of like, how would you say, kind of just sort of I don't know, they were kind of, yeah, catered by the club. They were, maybe obviously kind of messed with by the club, felt like they knew about the questions ahead of time, and all that sort of thing. And as well, I felt like Paratici's answers weren't really all that detailed or all that remarkable of any kind. I'll go back and try to pick some, some good nuggets out of it. But I don't know. Like I really did sort of I kind of left it like, happy to see Paratici, but I also left it just kind of like, I don't know if I really learned much from it. But let me know, Craig. Let me know, brother. Good to see you, Colin Turner. Really do appreciate you, my man. And thanks for tuning in, brother. Adrian Chia, big up, lads. I can script better answers than the board. Let me know. I think anybody could have scripted, probably Adrian, their lack of an answer to some of these questions. That was probably quite predictable for some people. Quite predictable, that's for sure. Big up, Adrian, my man. Just going to take a sip of coffee real quick. But good to see you, Adrian, my man. Good to see you in here. Really do appreciate you tuning in. And let me know how the Man City script is coming along. Have you gotten started? Have you gotten started, Adrian? Really do appreciate the support. Carl Simpson's in the house. Big up, Jack. I hope you are well, buddy. Doing all good, Carl. All good over here, my man. Woke up a little late. Had kind of a late last night. Wasn't really feeling too well yesterday, and especially also with the fact that supporters trust questions and the answers, or sorry, the board's answers, excuse me, were released so late last night. I was like, gee, it's like, give me a break here, and I felt like they could have just been released so much earlier in the day. So I could have had some time to think about it all, but they were released kind of a bit late and everything. I didn't even want to think about it much longer. Big up, Carl, my man. I'm doing okay, my man. Hopefully you're doing all good, brother. Good to see you in here, my man. Mark is in here. Board typical company PRBS. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. Mark. Colin Turner, basically Enoch have not told us anything we don't already know. The recruitment has been poor. Players not capable of taking the team forward. The players in would be able to replace someone going out. Another thing that I think we'll get into later, if people do want to come on and have their say about it, is they spoke about like something about the youth. I forget what question it was. Like I said, I haven't, exactly been able to recall it word by word and which question it was. But in one of the answers they had to one of the questions, there was an element where they sort of said that their youth progression or something is like tremendous or spectacular or something, was just as like a bold-faced lie. It was just a bold-faced lie with how they've been trying to, I think it was something about how, the progression or the pathway from, the youth academy to the first team, and the pathway for young talents to get into the first team has never been more clear, or like whatever. I forget what it was. Like they were basically patting themselves on the back for something that they just simply didn't do. Like, I think that we've made huge mistakes with some of the younger players in the past, and that has to do mostly with the board's lack of, or the board's reluctance to sell players that just simply aren't good enough for this team. Because what we find ourselves consistently doing is scraping our way past every single opponent that we seem to play, and that never gives these young players time to come on with no pressure. Like, when do we really have like games where we're 2-0, 3-0 up, sort of, and the young players get to come on and sort of flourish and get to kind of come in with no pressure and get to have that sort of experience? It just feels like we're always scraping past every opponent. We're always in one crisis week to the next crisis week, and there's no real good time for these young guys to really come in. And that actually is more to do with the players that we have in here that just consistently stick around, that put ourselves in this situation. We wouldn't have this problem, I think, if we weren't more ruthless with getting rid of some of the players that we have. Because part of the reason why we can't bring in the young players is because the coach is constantly trying to battle with results with the main starters that he has. He doesn't trust the young players that don't have any experience, but he also barely trusts the players that do have experience in this team that we don't know, that we just know simply aren't good enough. So I was frustrated with that part of it, Colin. I just thought it was a total non-answer, or really just not the non-answer. It's actually just a bold-faced lie, if you ask me. Jeffrey Tofield is in the house. Big up, lads. I live in South Africa, and this 1 billion rand deal with the tourist board is causing big uproar over here. So I don't think this deal will go through as usual. I was going to touch on it yesterday, Jeffrey, when I was going to do a news update, but I decided against it. And maybe I'll just leave it for Saturday or something. But yeah, it looks like there's getting some pushback from the president or something like that, Jeffrey. And I could see why, dude. I could see why. But if people want to come on and talk about that, feel free to do so. Pick up, Jeffrey. Chris said, Jack, your boy Emerson survived and Doherty gone. I'm going to have a good video about that. Don't you worry, Chris. Don't you worry. Colin also saying our scouting leaves a lot to be desired. We get linked with every quality player available, but don't end up buying any. I completely agree, Colin. And here's another thing with how like useless the scouting department was back in the day. I don't really get how, with Jose Mourinho's thing, with how he says Spurs were looking at Kim Min Jae. They wanted to pay 5 million, but they, what is it? I think it was Fenerbahce wanted 10 million. Spurs didn't want to pay the 10 million or whatever it was, I think at the time. And I think it was so ridiculous because that same season we ended up buying Joe Rodon. So I just didn't understand the logic of how Spurs were unwilling to pay 10 million for a Kim Min Jae, but we're fully willing to pay like 14, 15 million, whatever it was, for Joe Rodon at the time, who I just thought was probably equally as much of a risk, like, and probably of a similar at the time caliber of player. Of course, Kim Min Jae is a much, much, much better player. But if you really were looking at both of those players at face value at the time, they both looked like huge risks. But why did we end up going for the more expensive risks? Like, it just, I don't know, just didn't even check up with me in that regard. It was just so much, about it that just really just didn't make sense. Craig Bowler, we can't argue with 16 players in 18 months, 4 players in the summer, 2 center backs, a goalkeeper, and a cam, and we are ready to go. Craig, they did acknowledge the part that like they made mistakes in the past. I was actually quite happy to see that they acknowledged they made mistakes in the past when it came to the recruitment department. They said we've spent over 500 million, but a lot of it has, they didn't say a lot of it has been wasted. They say some of it has been wasted. I think a lot of it has been wasted, but they did admit that some of it has been wasted and that they're doing a huge sort of, what did they say, a revamp or kind of a review of a lot of the scouting department and everything that sort of contributed to those mistakes. And we knew about that from the Paratici era, actually, because Paratici, when he came in here under Hitchin, he had Hitchin basically take him through everything around the club. And it basically, Paratici did a big, huge review and fired a lot of people and basically just sort of scrapped it up and brought in a whole new system. And he brought in Gridor Steinson, he brought in new academy, he brought into like a new modern way of, tracking players and everything that wasn't there before. So it's quite obvious that, they were maybe aware that, the way they were doing things in terms of the, the player recruitment department was just well off. Big up though, Craig, my man. Good to see you in here. Big up Lasered Eye. Claude Murphy, the board have answered the questions truthfully. The problem is some people don't like it. Interesting take there, Claude. We also have Joseph Tana. The club has to stop enrolling for firing half-baked players and then loan them out. What is this? Some academy of sorts? This club cannot make mistakes anymore. Let Conte build a winning team. I think it's just the fact that Spurs brought in so many duds, Joseph, like under the Hitchin era, that they just are struggling to like reconcile with the fact that they just can't make any money back on them. Like, I think they really are looking at that much money wasted under that time period. They really are. And so I don't know, Joseph. I don't know. It seems like, they're unwilling basically to face the facts of, it's just so much money wasted during that time period. And so they kind of just keep kicking the can down the road, and kicking the can down the road is sort of, manifests itself in the way of loan deals. And I don't know. It's embarrassing, really. It really is embarrassing. Big yourself up, my man. Uh, Good to see you, Shay Gooch. Hopefully, all is good with you, my man. Terry Betts is in here. Absolutely play Poro. Luis is in here. Good to see you, Luis. Did they terminate Doc's contract to free up number 2 for Poro? No, I think he's taking number 23, Luis. And he was a number 24 for the likes of he originally was number 24 for the likes of I believe it was for Sporting, Luis. So, but Jet Spence is actually the number 24. So he's probably a bit upset maybe with that. Jet Spence has taken the number 24 before he has. Dermot with a gifting 5 memberships. Dermot, brother, really do appreciate it. Really, really, really do appreciate it, brother. I didn't even see that until just now. I just looked down, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Dermot. Everybody, please do take advantage of it. Looks like I was given one. I don't know how to turn that off, everybody. I've been trying to find a way to turn that off, but it just simply won't let me. Feel free to let me know. But Rowan Kumar was given one. Craig Bowler was given one. Jeff Ives was given one. And Cockeyed TV, Golden Cock. Good to see you. Steve, I believe it is, my man, the Pedro Porro enthusiast, the Pedro Porro dreamer, the Pedro Porro lover. Feel free to come on and have your say, everybody. The link is in your community section. Please, please, please come on and have a chat with me. Thank you very much, Dermot. You absolute legend. That's very generous of you, brother. And I'd love to have a call with you later today, dude. I'd love to have a call with you. And then he's also gifted a super sticker here as well. And that's just he's doing a little boxing match, doing a little punching of the bag right now. And I imagine a lot of people need a punching bag, maybe with the frustration of the lack of a response from the board, as well as also Dermot, coming up to this Man City weekend. You got to get into fighting mode. We got to get into the ready fighting mode against the Man City. Absolutely right, Dermatron. Really do appreciate it, my man. And I would say out of all the super stickers, that one is always a good one. I do enjoy the fighting one. DJ Samuel, member for 4 months as a Flat Cap member, saying we are not a football club anymore. Levy out. Big up, DJ Samuel. Let me know what you think of the lack of a response. I imagine you probably think to some of the to some of the questions that were brought up by the supporters trust. Big yourself up, DJ Samuel. Let me get to some more people in here. We have Derek Smith is in the house. Good to see you, Derek. Appreciate your support, my man. Hi, Jack. Also, as well, we have Carl Simpson, Rashad Chowdhury. Big up, Rashad. Big up, Jack from the Bronx. Watching you. That's where the old grandpa is from, Rashad. He's Bronx born and raised. Rest in peace. The grandpa, absolute legend. But good to see you. We have the tri-state area. Going hard. We got all the counties going hard here. Pick yourself up, Rashad. Hopefully, you're doing well up north in the Bronx, my man. We got DJ as well saying, wish that's the TV show You're Smarter Than a 10-Year-Old was still on. That would still suit Levy. Maybe so. Maybe so. Neil Shafton, good to see you in here. Neil, the Spurs fan is in here. Good to see you, the Spurs fan. Savvy, please Levy out. Big up, Savvy. We have Paul Beatty in the house. The board's response had a bit of a piss off plebs flavor. It certainly had a bit of a tone, let's say, Paul. Had a bit of a tone. Big up, Greco. Good to see you in here. We also have Peter M. Big up, Jack. Just finished work. Hopefully work went okay, Peter. Let me know, my man. It's Friday. Is the week over for you? Is it the weekend, or do you still have to work on the weekend? Peter, do let me know, my man. Thanks for tuning in as well, brother. We also have Zoe in the house. Hi, Jack. Hope you're having a good day. I hope you are too, Zoe. Really confused and deflated by the board's response, but looking forward to seeing Poro in action. Come on, you Spurs. I have already put him into my fantasy team, Zoe. And also as well, just want to say, everybody, I took a huge break from the fantasy, and all of a sudden today just kind of woke up from that kind of like days of not doing anything when it came to the fantasy football, and have gotten straight back into it. Played the wild card, refreshed the whole team and everything. I'm back and ready, going to make a huge climb back up the table because I was starting really strong, and then I just sort of kind of, I don't know what it was. I just stopped kind of paying attention, and then really kind of fell off for a while. Missed lots and lots and lots of weeks. So I'm going to have to climb my way back up, Zoe. But I already put Pedro Porro into the fantasy team. Just had to get him in there. And yeah, I'm also a bit deflated and a bit confused. And it's just left me kind of also just, it's tiresome to kind of keep going through this sort of kind of conversation, Zoe. That's for sure. Cool, sexy football. Big up, Jack. Our board are very clever when it comes to financial player play and all that stuff, but didn't realize we had so many lone players out. Great business, guys. Football knowledge. Yeah, a lot of people at first, including myself, Cool, sexy, sort of complimented them for the ruthlessness of how they handled the Doherty situation. But people like Daniel Larson sort of came to me and said, like, no, Jack, it's not ruthlessness. It's actually kind of idiocy. It's just them not realizing that they've had so many players out on loan that they were too reluctant to take the hit on and sell in the past. And now that's caught up to, bite them. And now I guess Doherty is sort of the victim of that sort of problem. So it really is actually more idiocy than maybe it is ruthlessness. Lisa, big up, Jack. Good afternoon to all in the chat. Appreciate you, Rashad, my man. Thanks for tuning in, dude. Thanks for tuning in as well. Hopefully you're keeping well, everybody. But let's get into this. Let's have a good chat. The first guest of the evening is going to be Mia. Mia, how are we?
Not too bad. How are you? It feels like ages since I've spoken to you, Jack.
No, you told me that, and I guess it's been since the last fan show, and it feels like a lot actually happened. So actually could talk about here, Mia. So might be here a while. Everything from the response to the supporters trust questions to this Man City preview to Antonio Conte's just had surgery. Pedro Porro has just come in. January transfer window just concluded. A lot has happened in a week here. A lot has happened.
Yeah, it does. It has really. When you think a week's it's a long time when you're Spurs, right?
Yeah. There's a lot can happen when they're Spurs. A lot can happen when they're Spurs. What do you feel like, Mia? Where do you want to start? I know that you just had a long chat about the supporters trust. Do you want to keep getting stuck into that, or would you rather start
Yeah,
somewhere
we
else?
can do. No, we can do. Yeah, because obviously, what I would caveat it with is the fact that I'm not the biggest fan of the supporters trust. I just don't feel like I can't explain, but into words really, but it just feels like they do the minimum of what they feel like they should do to look good. I don't ever feel like it's genuine. I don't know. They don't feel genuine to me in what they're asking. It feels like their questions were a bit disingenuous in some senses, in some of their with some of their questions. Maybe not all of them, but some of them were a bit disingenuous, and like they knew that there weren't going to be answers, or they made them too broad. So then, what kind of answers are you going to really get? So it just sort of was like a kind of maybe to look good for the fans. Look, we are doing something. And I don't know. I'm just not their biggest fan. I have to be honest.
Just quickly, Jason Bell, member for 16 months as a fan show member. Really do appreciate that, Jason. He says, big up, Jack. I'm looking forward to and dreading Sunday's match. I am also looking forward to it. Am I dreading it? I guess yes, if it doesn't go well, Jason. Like, there is obviously that potential because it went flying last time until we ended up conceding 4 goals in one half. But I feel like this could be an exciting match. I expect this one to be an entertaining game nonetheless, Jason. If it doesn't end up being that, I do apologize. Maybe I got this one completely wrong, but I haven't seen the script of it ahead of time. But Jason, I see what you mean. Looking forward to it as well as dreading it, but really do appreciate you, my man. 16 months as well as a fan show member. Pick yourself up, Jason, and come on and have your say, dude. Come on and have your say if you feel like it as well. But thanks for tuning in, my man. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry, Mia, but I was actually going to say maybe you can feel free to disagree with me here, but I sort of summarized my kind of thoughts on this first question. I agree with you. I find this first question to be a bit open ended, which sort of then leaves you into trouble where it's like they can then leave an open ended response that's not, exactly what you want. Sometimes you need to be very specific with a question so that you get a specific right response. At the same time, though, I feel like that in that one element where they said strategy and, what's your long term strategy and medium term strategy for both on and off the pitch, I feel like they answered it in some detail for off the pitch, but they didn't exactly answer it for on the pitch. Like, I feel like they could have just given like some sort of, in 10 years, we would love to say that Spurs have, won an FA Cup, or Spurs are consistently challenging for domestic trophies, or Spurs have a much better 11 than, I don't know, like they could have like committed to some sort of, tagline kind of, you know what I'm trying to say.
But the problem with that is, Jack, is if they commit something, then they don't do it or it doesn't occur, they can't read into the future, so they don't know exactly what's going to happen. And if that doesn't occur, people are then going to go, "You've gone back on your word." So they're being a bit non-committal, and I can understand why they're being a bit non-committal, because like you don't want to say something and then it goes all Pete Tong, and like that's wrong for anybody who doesn't know Cockney grinding slang. It goes all wrong for them and then it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work out. So I kind of see, because if you think about it, they said as well they've given a 3 point plan, and we've done 2 of the points, and then there's like now the third point, so they're sort of like we're reiterating what we've already told you is the kind of plan, but we can't make it specific because again, like I say, we just don't know what the future holds. In some sense, we can't promise cups, we can't promise the trophies, so it is a tricky one. I'm not trying to side with the board on this at all, but I'm just saying I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can kind of understand maybe why they did it in that kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly that's why, because they didn't want to commit to anything and then get it thrown back in their faces when it didn't happen.
Yeah. Did you even what's funny about it too is like in this question as well, right? They kind of say like, here, let me actually scroll up a tiny bit. How is the club measuring progress, and how does it judge current outcomes against those measurements? So basically, like in a fancy way, they're sort of saying like, how have you, looked at your sort of goals, and how do you look at, how you guys measure progress, and how do you look at, where we are right now? Basically, what mistakes have you basically made? I think is sort of, a fancy way of asking.
Yeah,
And I feel like
and
what's weird about them is that they answer that more in the second question, like, because they said in the second question, like, we have misused a lot of transfer funds, and we have done like a thorough inspection of the footballing side of our scouting department to try to fix that. And so it was weird that they said that like in the second answer instead of in this answer, because in this one, they're basically asking for them to sort of admit to things maybe they've done wrong. And they kind of, I don't feel like do that as much in the first answer as they do in the second answer, which left me a bit confused. I don't know if you know what I mean.
yeah, yeah, I do know what you mean. It's a bit confusing. However, they answered it in the end, and I suppose if that's what people wanted, that's what the fans wanted. I feel like no matter what they would have answered, there are always going to be people who are unhappy with the answers, regardless. So it was a bit of a pointless exercise in my book, because I do feel like no matter what people would have read into it, they would have read between the lines, they would have said it wasn't answered clearly enough, they would have gone, Joe, like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that it's a really they're trying to sort of please all the people all of the time, which is an impossible task, in a way. So I just don't know what people expected from the board, if I'm honest, with these
Mm.
answers. I really didn't. Like the only one I would say was the biggest foul was the one with the youth setup, because that one I completely disagree
Yeah.
with. I think that it's absolute nonsense about the
You
club
agreed
and
with me. It
how
was
we
kind
are
of a bit
with
of
our
like a
youth.
bold-faced lie. It just felt like a bold-faced lie, like in that
Yeah,
degree. You're just like, come on, like
definitely. That
Madueke,
one.
Marcus Edwards, Brian Hill, like you're getting it wrong there, like, clearly. And
Yeah,
so
no, definitely. That one was definitely the one that I thought was live. But one of the questions, I can't remember which one, was really snarky. And I thought, and they gave a snarky answer. Oh, that's the way you're doing it, because you're being snarky. And the club are being a bit like, oh, we're just going to give it right back to you because you're being like that. So we're going to be like that. It's childish, but it's what they felt maybe a bit kind of like, well, we didn't need to put it like that. And that's what I'm saying about the trust. I think these questions, I could have worded these a whole lot better and a bit more
uh,
specific, and probably got better answers out of the club, because of the way they're put as well. Makes you get your backup, and they were very defensive answers, but it's because the club's got their backup probably with the way they were asked these questions. I think
mm,
any of us would have our backup if the questions were asked in a snarky way. You're going to be a bit like, excuse me,
mm.
like talking to me like that, like no. I suppose that's what I kind of see out of it.
Yeah, I also feel like maybe what you're saying, maybe with sort of snarkiness, I think that's actually reflected maybe more so in the second question, because I think the first question wasn't
Yeah,
exactly snarky or anything. I think the first
no,
question, if you wanted to criticize it, like if you felt a need to, you would say it was a bit open-ended, and so that left, the opportunity to leave an open-ended response. And so you could have held them more accountable maybe with that first question. But then again, I still think they dodged, the question, a little bit in the first one. The second one, if you were to say they were being a bit tonish, I think, yeah, this would definitely be the case in the second question. The manager employed by the club has not signed a new contract and tells us that we should lower our expectations about on-field outcomes. He has said publicly that the club needs to spend big money every window just to compete. How does this align with the board's philosophy for achieving success? So the reason I find that to be like, how else do you want, like, are they going to answer that? Like, I don't like, I think they're just going to answer that in sort of the most like glorifying way of themselves possible. Like, I think they could have gone about that question differently, because you're not
Yeah.
going to be asking a question like that and expect them just to be completely, what, how would you put it? Like, they're not going to be completely critical of themselves. Like, the way that, the question is phrased, it's kind of, I don't know, like they're going to be defensive. Like, they are going to be defensive with how I think the question is phrased in this one. I think it is put a little bit, they could have put it a
Yeah.
little bit differently, if
I
you ask
think
me. And what's weird
they
though is
could have
that in
just
this
put
question they
maybe.
admit to more mistakes in this question, because they said, despite this, we consistently see references to our perceived lack of backing for head coaches and lack of spending. It's important that we deal with facts. Our spend levels quite clearly show that we have backed our football side. There's always a fine line between long-term investment and short-termism, which is why our recruitment has to be first class. Mistakes at this level leave a financial and sporting impact for future seasons. We have felt financial impact of supporting player purchases which have not worked out as hoped. We have taken steps to improve this area of operations, and the recent windows reflect this. So it's like this little end part is them admitting to mistakes, even though they kind of right before it don't really
Yeah.
admit to it. It's just, that's where I find it funny. It's like, why is it that they're admitting to mistakes in this question when maybe they could have admitted it more freely in here? Because this one I think was less of an aggressive question, the first one, and they didn't really admit to any mistakes, or at least weren't trying to in the first one. Whereas the second one I think was more of an aggressive question, but then they more willingly admitted to mistakes. I don't know, like it's I'm left a little confused in
Well,
that
maybe it's to do
department.
with the spending, that they knew they had to admit it with the like the phrasing of the question that sort of
Okay.
came into it. Maybe like I would have put the question differently. I would have just maybe said something about, no, like, we understand that Conte has told us it's going to take time to build. Have you got any strategy to how long this will build? How long, like, or some sort of time frame of building, or a plan that we can visibly see, because we all want what's best for our club, so we would all like to know what your plan might be, or something like
Hmm.
that, something like that was like not so in your face aggressive. And I agree with them, we have spent money and we have spent it incorrectly at times, 100%. But the fact that people keep saying we don't spend money is a fallacy, and it is a fallacy, and they just pointed that out, like, as a, we have spent money, but we have spent it incorrectly at times. So
Hmm.
I kind of understand their response with that one, because it is a bit of a prickly subject
I
when
agree.
it comes to the money, because people a lot of the times chuck, we don't spend money, and it is like, well, that's not actually true. It's spent incorrectly, and money doesn't always equal greatness, because we have had times where we spent money on players and they haven't worked out, and in hindsight people say, oh, it was a waste of money. But at the time, people wanted those players. So now they're going back on and revising history because it didn't work out. So,
No,
we've got to be a bit
I
more reasonable.
I agree that they have spent money. It's just then though, it's like they then though haven't been ruthless in how the scouting department and the recruitment department has looked, because they've decided to they've spent money in certain windows, but then they haven't spent it well, like, is being
Yeah,
reflected in the case of Mourinho's last season, right, where they we only have one player that we actually still see of any use to this team after that huge window under Mourinho, and a lot of those were just all duds after dud after dud after dud. And it's really sort of reflecting that even if you do spend money, you need to have the right recruitment department behind that money spent, because then it's just, you're more likely to just, throw money down the toilet, really, is how it
yeah,
is. And that's where I get also frustrated, where it's like, I don't think Spurs need to be spending as much as Chelsea, or need to be spending as much as Man City, or the big, big, big clubs. But at the same time, you then, if you're not going to spend as much as them, you need to realize that you have a less margin for error than those guys do, because
yeah,
you don't have as much money to spend. So the margin of error goes down. So you have to have a good recruitment department to not make as many mistakes as, let's say, other clubs do. But it feels like, especially under the Hitchin era, we had, it felt like one of the worst recruitment departments at that time. And so it felt like any money that we did spend was probably going to be money, thrown down the drain, or really to a degree. Like even the Kim Min-jae thing was such an example. Like Spurs at the time, like they found Kim Min-jae and rated Kim Min-jae, but they found Joe Rodon to be more worth the 15 million
I
than Kim Min-jae
think
was. Like, and that's just,
I
exhibit A.
think actually that Jose quote was actually debunked. I think that there was an issue with the timing or something with him. He was saying that, but the timing was actually out of whack for when he said it, that it happened. So I don't know if that's actually quite the truth, because sometimes we do misremember when we're obviously saying things. So I don't know if he misremembered, but that actually was disproven. I'm not trying to say that not all of the situations
No, of
can
course.
be, but just saying that specific one, I think was actually disproven, if I remember correctly. But the fact is, I completely agree with you. Like, we have wasted money, and the scouting has not been nowhere near good enough, 100%. And we do have to be careful with because the way we are run, we can't just spend money like what Chelsea have done and bought basically like a whole other squad in like one transfer window. So we can't do that. So I do completely agree with you. But they did admit that. They admit they've made mistakes. They said that the recruitment hasn't been the best. So they did actually say that. They did at least say, well, we did make that mistake. And I suppose if that's what people, can they accept that? Will they just be okay with them saying, oh, we made the mistake? Probably not, because they probably say that's not enough. So it's, again, you can't please all the people all of the time.
I hope that wouldn't be the case, because then it's like, what the hell is the point then, of, of this sort of back and forth? Because the mistakes have been made, like, and there's not much you can do about, you just have to move on from them, and you have to sort of make, repair the mistakes, made to a degree. But I don't know, Mia, it feels like the answers have been provided. I think a lot of them are a bit of non-answers. But at the same time, I think there's also a bit of over criticism of some of the answers too. Like it seems like, some of the things that, they have answered, they have admitted to some, the mistakes. Like, I'm happy to hear that they have done a huge revamp of that scouting department and have done, a huge review of the mistakes made in the recruitment department. Like, as much as they're not going to criticize their own spending, like they won't go as far to criticize their own lack of spending. They will criticize their lack of overseeing of a bad recruitment department. They did admit clearly that they had a bad
Yeah.
recruiting strategy and a bad recruitment department in the past. And they've done, steps to try to reverse that. And they've obviously clearly put some faith in Paratici in some way, because they say that the recent windows reflect that we've made huge changes. And that's my
Yeah.
whole point with even Paratici in the first place, is that even though like it gets way blown out of proportion of our love of the guy, the whole point is that we've seen, at least myself, I have seen much, much fewer duds each window since the guy has come in here. And even though a
He
lot of the same bad habits and old habits of Spurs still seem to creep through with him in charge, or Paratici here, we are not making the same sort of recruitment mistakes that I feel like we would have made,
because
in
he
the
didn't
past.
because we didn't just bring Paratici, we actually changed a lot of the backroom staff with it, didn't we? We changed a lot of the systems and the way that it worked. So
Yeah.
people don't understand. They thought we just brought Paratici in, but it wasn't that. It actually was a whole system change of the in the back room, because he came in and done that. He wanted things changed up and worked differently. So I think that's probably something that has affected it too. Like, that's maybe what they said about improvements. They've let Paratici come in and said, okay, you want to change this, we'll do it your way. So
Yeah.
I suppose, like, yeah, that is something that we have actually improved on, and people might not. I'm still like with Paratici. I want to see what else he does, but so far I can't say that he hasn't done a good job. Like, I think he's brought us in some really good players. Look at Romero. He brought in Romero, brought in Pedro Porro, he brought in Kulu and Bentancur. So for me, I can't really say that he's done an awful job at all. I would like to see how much like further he'll go. If Conte leaves, what will happen and what he'll do then? It'd be interesting. But I do like Paratici, and I think that he has done a good job. And also, this pending thing with him is a bit of an issue, but we'll have to see who's going to appeal it. So that's going to
Yeah.
be a tricky situation if it doesn't work. And then they bring in the ban over here as well. If the ban gets upheld in the UK, then we are a bit stuffed, because we will have to get rid of him,
Mm.
which will be a real shame, because I think that he is trying to change things.
Mm. Dermot here. Big up me and Jack, both legends. Spurs 2, Man City 0. Love that Dermotron. I have gone for a bit of a basketball game. I could see it being like a 4-3, a 3-2, a bit of a crazy one. It feels like these games are never 1-0, 2-1, type fixtures. I guess maybe when Jose was in charge it was, but not anymore.
Yeah. Joe, what's funny actually, in my video I said my heart I said 2-0, the same as Dermot, but in my head I said 3-2 to us.
Yeah.
So no, I kind of thought the same lines as you.
I'm like, yeah, I'm going with the head today. Yeah, it's like, these games are always a bit, they're just a bit sort of basketball-y. I feel like at times they get a bit sort of hectic. They start to lose kind of that sort of, how would you put it, tactic. Even sometimes it doesn't even feel like it's, it's just teams kind of exchanging blows, where like the last game even felt that way. Like Rodri was absolutely tearing apart our midfield, like in that second half. It felt like in Spurs were just sort of hanging on, and I don't know. It's just, these are always, intense affairs, and these always end up being kind of hectic, sort of chaotic games. At least
the craziest one has to be the Champions League one against City. That was mad. The amount of goals scored in that first half was mental. I've never known a game like it in my life. To watch that game was just mad, absolutely crazy.
Have you ever seen a team concede 4 goals in the second half, being 2-0 up? Have you seen that before me? I mean, that was also tremendous, and big up there.
I think it was crazy for a different reason, though, because we actually got through when that goal. Oh my goodness! Yeah, every time I watched it over, I was like, "Get the ball out!" Even though I know what happens, I was like, "Get the ball out! Get the ball out!" Every time I watched it on replay, because I was like, "How did we not just get that ball away?" And we were so lucky with the VAR. Yeah. That was dangerous times.
This is a good comment here, I think, from Tottenham LSG saying, Levy doesn't buy top players because you've got to pay top players top wages. It's not rocket science. As said, our scouting network prohibits us finding top players before they become top players. This is what I agree with. And I also find this to be where maybe it all kind of goes wrong for Spurs, because I think when they say we're in the top quartile of spending and they kind of complimented themselves for that, I actually found that to be like more of like, well, that just shows that you're getting it very wrong then, because you're not in the very highest echelon of spending where you can kind of be like in the Man City or in the Chelsea department, where you can kind of fix your own mistakes with just, a blank check of another transfer. We're not in that sort of echelon of spending, but we're still in one of the higher echelons of spending in the league. But we don't seem to have the sort of track record that Brentford have. We don't have the track record that Brighton have. We don't have the track record that other clubs clearly have with their recruitment department and what they bring in with whatever money they have. And if Spurs want to be this club that tries to not nearly spend as much as others, they don't want to outspend other clubs, they need to get the recruitment department down to a T, and they need to get it down much to a finer sort of science than they do. And it clearly was the case that there was kind of no science behind it. There kind of was no strategy, it felt like, behind a lot of the transfers and a lot of the sort of scouting and anything. And so it prohibited us, like you said, from, it felt like, going through with getting the Kavichas, going through with getting the Kim Min-jaes, going through with getting a lot of these sort of hidden talents ahead of time. And I think Spurs could have really benefited. I have actually no issue with Spurs being a club that sort of identifies those hidden talents much ahead of time, much further ahead of time, like Brighton do in clubs like that. But the issue is that we have much more money to spend than Brighton and Brentford do, yet those clubs are doing it better than us. So it's just, that's where it's deeply frustrating, and that's where it's also, they're doing something wrong, because you're spending more money than these other clubs that seem to be having a much better, sort of track record and a much better sort of hit rate. They have a much better hit rate with the players that they bring in than Spurs do, despite spending much less money. So it's frustrating, but I don't know. Where do you stand on it, Mia? Like, that's where I just sort of get more ramped up about. I get more ramped up about not always the money spent, but just more the recruitment and just how poor the recruitment is, because it's not like I'm giving Levy a pass in that scenario. It's actually more like Levy's also responsible for the people that are in charge of the recruitment department. Like, he sees it on the pitch. He sees the people that we bring in, the duds that we have brought into this club. And he's kind of ignored it in the past, where he's just kind of let them stick around. And he's also let the recruitment department stick around when clearly they were kind of delivering dud after dud after dud with his own money. So that's also, I think, like where he takes a lot of responsibility is like if Hitchens, wasting your money, you have to take acknowledgement of that. Like you have to take ownership of that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that people get really worked up with this whole money business. So they want a set amount of money in their minds, which they feel like is the expectation. However, you've got to understand with wages, if we don't let one person have more wages, then it affects the whole pay scale and how it works. So I'm not opposed to getting good prospects as long as the scouting is on point and investing more money in our youth. Because if our youth is better, then we've got youth players also coming through, which is something that we could use. And that would obviously save us money because we'd have players there ready to play. So for me, it's about investing in the correct scouting system and more in our youth. That's where I would say is our biggest downfall.
Um, Before I get on to Killian Gubens here, good to see you in here, brother. Neil Shafton, member for 15 months, elite member. You absolute legend, Neil, and really, really dedicated and generous support, my friend. Very, very generous. And he says it's nice that they built a brand new state-of-the-art training facility because God knows it equates to success on the pitch and in recruitment. That is the answer from a bunch of clueless people. Neil, I agree and disagree with you. I think the training facilities and the training pitch and the facilities we have absolutely contribute, I think, to keeping people here. Like, I think it doesn't attract, I would say, players, or it doesn't exactly attract coaches or anything. I think it keeps coaches around. Like, I think it's a very sort of like, how would you put this, Mia? Like, like once you get someone into the club, if you turn out to have, the nicest facilities, some of the nicest sort of kind of environment and everything, that's like an extra sort of thing that sort of probably helps people stick around. But I wouldn't say it's like something that allures people over. Wouldn't say it's something that like attracts people over to the club. It's probably something more that keeps people at the club is,
Yeah,
having
it's
the
like
nice
that wow
facilities.
factor, isn't it? It's that wow
Yeah.
factor is when you go in and then you see all the facilities and what it's like, and then
Yeah.
you think about other places that might have different facilities. You're like, oh yeah, they're not as good. It's a bit like if you've got like either a Louis Vuitton handbag and compare it to like an Asda's like plastic bag. Obviously, you're going to go for the Louis Vuitton bag, right? Because it's more, it looks nicer, it's more expensive, more luxurious.
Mm-hmm. I just think with Neil here, like I agree with you. Like it's the way they phrased it. They phrased it as if the training facilities, the stadium, and everything attract the players initially to the club. Like that's already enough for people to want to come play for Spurs. And I find that to be a huge exaggeration and a huge overstep. I agree with that part where it's like, Neil, I think they're a little ridiculous to assume that people are just going to come play for Spurs because our stadium happens to be super shiny and our training facility happens to be like top notch and state of the art. Like all that stuff is not going to like attract some player over. But what I would say though is I do think it probably helps keep players around, and actually to our own detriment to a degree, Neil, because some of the players that we want to get rid of, right, Mia, have actually been quite comfortable here and love playing for Spurs because it's a comfortable environment, it's nice facilities, all that sort of stuff. Like Davinson Sanchez reluctant to leave, Ben Davies reluctant to leave, Dyer all reluctant to leave because it's such a state-of-the-art training facility, it's state-of-the-art stadium that it's quite cushy over here at Spurs to a degree.
No, yeah, it's true. And Neil, if you don't know about Louis Vuitton handbags, mate, I suggest you go and have a little look up about Louis Vuitton. So I know my handbag, so yeah, a handbag is a luxury handbag. The
Neil's
amount of
got
money
good
you've got to
taste,
pay
though,
for
I
those.
imagine. I bet Neil's
Yeah.
got good taste. Killian Gubens bringing up Doherty here. Mia, do you want to have a chat about that? He says
Yeah,
Doherty
you
has been
can.
treated with so much disrespect, and I'm telling you, we are going to regret this because now we are still going to be relying on Emerson if anything happened to Poro, and Emerson is awful. What do you make of the Doherty situation?
The Doherty situation is we've got something out of it that we really probably would say was a better. It was better than to keep him. If we come back and we just sold him for 1 million, or we couldn't sell him and he sat there, we couldn't sell him. People would say, "Oh, but we can't even sell him. He come back from loan." So it was a bit of a bad situation, bad planning. But I feel like we've got the best out of that situation. I'm glad that he's gone. I feel like we need to be more ruthless and say, actually, if we can't loan you out, cool, we'll just get rid of you. Like, I think probably that was the best outcome. And I think Emerson's more defensive, so Porro's more attacking, and Doherty's supposed to be attacking, and he doesn't attack very well. So what was the point of him? I think we've got I think Tanganga can play in that spot as well, I believe. So we have got
Mhm.
other kind of backup if we really did need it. So no, I think that Doherty, it was the best out of a bad situation, him leaving. And I said to you the other day, we should do that with Sanchez's contract as well. We should just rip their contracts up and say, see you later. And I think we should be more ruthless in that way.
I do think we should be more ruthless. It's also though like I kind of accept the notion that I'm happy that we were ruthless in this situation, but is it maybe the fact that we were only ruthless because of our own mistake with us realizing that we had so many players
Yeah.
out on loan, and also the fact that we have so many players out on loan is a reflection of the recruitment that we've gotten wrong in the past, and us not wanting to be ruthless. So it's kind of like,
Listen, I do
yeah,
I do understand that, like I say, it was like the best outcome from a bad situation. So I completely agree. We misjudged the situation and it was a mess, and we shouldn't have allowed that to happen. But like I say, if he would have gone and come back and sat on the bench, and basically he refused to go until his contract was up because he didn't want to be sold, or we couldn't get the money for him, a couple of million for him, then everybody would say, oh, well, why are we paying his wages? He's dead wood. So I kind of see it as the best of a bad situation, in my opinion.
yeah, I could see it as the best of a bad situation, but also with Doherty, maybe he's the victim of kind of, how would you put this, like a lack of ruthlessness in the past. Like he's seen out the victim of this sort of ruthless decision, but had they been maybe more ruthless with players they just put out on loan, like they could have just taken the loss on some of the guys like Joe Rodon. They could have just taken the loss on other players, right, that they brought into the club. But they kind of just continue to put them out on loan, right, Mia? And so they've now reached their limit of all the players that they didn't want to be ruthless with. And now I guess Matt Doherty is somehow the victim of, kind of that, sort of decision, or that kind of
Yeah.
lack of ruthlessness is how I would put it. That lack of ruthlessness has sort of, forced him to now be a victim of it to a degree.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. Like, I do see it like that as well. Like, I can understand that point of view. But the fact as well that everybody was a bit shocked by it is good, because I hope players are shocked by it, and I hope this
Hmm.
gives them a
Me
kick
too.
up the backside and makes
Me
them
too.
think twice and think, actually, they will just get rid of our contracts, because that's the sort of the reason I like it, is because it might kick the other players up the backside as well a little bit, and make them have a little look at themselves. And that's what we want. We want the club to come across like, listen, you're not doing good enough, you won't be sold because you're being a pain, we'll just rip up your contract. I think that's
Mm.
not a bad way to kind of behave, and maybe see if other players clock onto that and think, oh, I better be good. I better actually do my job, which is actually to play football, not stand there like an absolute clown.
Also, to be fair, like when people kind of say that we could have recouped some money out of it, like that's also like a bit of a stretch. Like he's 31 years old. Like he's, I think, on the last year of his contract or something like that as well. Like there was no way that someone was going to come in for like 5 million to take Matt Doherty off our hands. Like everybody was just going to wait for him to leave on some free, and he was going to head off to like Hull City or like whatever it was. Like no offense to him, but I think it was a bit of a stretch to say that Spurs were going to somehow make any money on it or anything like that. So I don't know, like
Yeah.
maybe they really just took the hit because they knew that it wasn't a great transfer to begin with. And like, I hate to put it bluntly here, like, and Ellie has, brought it up. Doherty is the victim of not being a good right wing back when he realized too late, and he has finally been shipped out. People who have, I think, been, Killian Gubens here absolutely loved Doherty, but we would all admit that he never really got much of a chance, or he never really, made a case for himself ahead of Serge Aurier. He never really made a case for himself ahead of Emerson. Like, and those are two not spectacular right backs or fullbacks of any kind. Like, and he never really made a consistent case for himself ahead of those guys. So it's like that kind of says, I think, more about you than it does than about the manager or anything for me, Mia.
Yeah, no, it's true. And he always looked really miserable as well. He always looked like he needed a good cheering up. He just looked one of those really miserable players. He never looked happy.
Hmm. I think the last game too was more of a reflection of maybe why Doherty, I don't know, like it was a strange situation actually as well, because I heard that Antonio Conte dropped him after the Arsenal game, and then Matt Doherty said he was super confused because he thought he played really, really well or like something like that. And I was just like, no one played well like in that North London derby, like
No.
absolutely no one. Like, why do you think you had some, worldy of a performance? In fact, I actually thought he got quite bullied in that North London derby. At least physically, I thought he got a little bullied in
Yeah,
it.
he did.
And so I don't know, maybe that's why Conte brought him out of it. He just didn't think he was up to it physically, or something. But I don't know. It's a weird one, I think, for people to, as much as Killian, I agree with you. Like, if you're not a big fan of Emerson, you're kind of looking at it like, we're still stuck with, a poor second option. I just sort of look at it like Doherty has been here longer. He's not ever made a case for himself ahead of Serge Aurier. He's never made a case for himself ahead of Emerson, at least convincingly in any way. Like, even also when he was given the go ahead of Emerson, he didn't really take his chance exactly. Like, he sort of kind of continued to sort of underwhelm. And then Emerson got another opportunity to take his spot back and he took it. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like Doherty's just had chances. He just hasn't taken it since being at Spurs. And that's probably has to do with the fact he might not be good enough, really. Big up Killian, though, my man. Big up. Mia, Man City preview, and then, plug your channel and anything else you want to chat about, really?
Yeah, we can talk about Man City. Obviously, we know that they're a dangerous team, as we found out when we were 2-0 up and they decided to score 4 goals in the second half. But I do think we poked the bear a little bit. I think if it would have gone in 0-0, I don't think they would have been as ruthless. I think they would have felt comfortable. And I don't think they maybe would have been pushing maybe as hard, but because they were 2-0 down, I suppose Pep gave them a right telling off when they went into the dressing room at half time. So I feel like we did poke the bear a little bit on that one. But yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because they've got so many good players. So you've got the top goal scorer in Haaland, you've got the top assist in De Bruyne, and it's just like they've got so many other players on the pitch, either like Jack Grealish, or we've got they've got so many players. It's just like it's really difficult to try and contain them. But we do need to, I think, play how we've beat them in the past, which is to hit them on the break. And with Porro as well, I think he should start and we should hit them on the break. We should do what we normally do, is let them have the possession and just be really good defensively, really strong defensively, and then just hit them on the break, because I don't see us winning any other way, because we tried to play a bit better football and we actually did play quite well in that first half. And look what happened. I feel like the second half we just dropped our heads and we weren't thinking. It was like, oh, we're 2-0 up, and we kind of lost it a little bit. And I think that we need to be really on it defensively, and I think the best way is probably to hit them on the break quickly, because as we've got like in the past, like I say, how we actually have beat them, if you think about it.
With Pedro Porro available, is that a guy you just slot in right away, or do you think maybe too big of a game for him in this one? Throw him in right away.
No, he's played big. Yeah, he's played big games. He's he's definitely got to play. He's got to play for me. I think if Emerson plays, there's going to be riots in that stadium. If we hear Emerson's name being called out, boy, there's going to be trouble. Big trouble. So I think that Porro being announced will be really nice as well. I think it's going to uplift the fans as well.
Do you feel like with the likes of also with Sonny scoring in that most recent game in the FA Cup, Man City, it's a second opportunity for him to kind of get it going again. This is a team that he likes playing against. He did not play well, I think, in the last Man City game. But this is maybe a chance for him to turn it around. What would you say, Mia? Can he turn it around against the likes of Man City, or are those games that he had in the Preston result, are we reading too much into it?
I think we're probably reading a bit much into it, because he had that game against Leicester and then what happened. So I would like to see him come back into form, absolutely, because when he's on form, he's on fire. He scores goal after goal, and the goal he did score against Preston, that first goal, what an absolute beautiful goal. Like, wow, my mind blown. Curls there, he does it like that, and he curls them like that from that distance. It's just like chef's kiss, like beautiful goals. But we want him to score them now in the big games, and he has previously stepped up with, like you say, against City. So, and at home as well, they've not beat us at our new stadium yet. Touch wood, touch wood, touch wood, touch wood, touch Touchwood. Something we could really try and
We've
keep
already
up
said that
with. That
before
would be
this season.
something to kind of hold on to.
We already said that
Don't,
before
I'm
this
touching
season.
wood. I'll touch my table that's wood, okay?
Let's hope so. Let's
Don't.
hope so.
I'm trying to put it out there. The good luck. The good luck.
Also as well though, the whole squad is fit for once actually too, right? Where we have Bentancur is fit, Richarlison I guess is fit. So finally, kind of these injury worries we don't have to deal with too. Now we can sort of see like more of a this bench will for once, Mia, look a lot stronger. It feels like.
Yeah, no, it does feel like we've actually finally got a bit more of a actual backup on the bench now, which is something we, like you say, we haven't actually had, and that could have been something that's obviously been a bit like what's happened is a bit affected by that. So we haven't had people on the bench to bring on. So yeah, I do think that having that bench is something that is good. It's nice that we've got that bench to have, and to see if he wants to change it up, he can always change it, because we've got Danjuma as well. So if Sonny isn't performing, we could just bring him on as well. Like, why not just chuck the kid on, just chuck him on? Because what's the worst that's going to happen? If we're going to lose anyway, we might as well lose trying. At least bring like the new guy on and see if he can do something instead of Sonny. Because if Sonny's just a passenger, what's the point of him being there? You know, I'd much rather see Danjuma come on. So yeah, I think that we've got I'm quite optimistic with the fact that we've got a good bench, and you know, I'd like to think that we can win. Especially, like I say, our home record against City is pretty good, and maybe as well because after the game. After a couple of the bad games, I think we had a big meeting, and since then we haven't conceded a goal either. Touch wood. I keep saying that because I'm like, please don't concede goals.
There's only so much wood left.
Please. Yeah, honestly, I run out of luck. I need to get a Buddha and rub the belly of the Buddha. Yeah, I do think, like I say, that it's an opportunity for us to prove ourselves. Although we will be helping the scum out as well by doing this. It's a bit of a like double-edged sword, because I don't care. I want us to win at all costs. I do not care. But the fact that we're going to help the scum makes it really horrible for me, because it gives that little edge of I don't quite like it. I want us to win, but I'm going to feel like, oh, damn it, we've done them a favour. Like, I don't really want to do them a favour, but I want us to win, absolutely. I never want us to lose. So I think we're going to win 3-2. That's my prediction. I said 2-0, like I said, but my heart is saying 2-0, but my head is definitely saying 3-2, because I know that we probably will concede.
Too. I'm going with the head prediction of a 3-2 for me. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It seems I honestly would put money on it. It's that much of a strong prediction. I feel like the 3-2. It's going to be a crazy game. So even if we concede the first goal, I'm not going to even be too worried. I'll be honest. Like, I could see it being a crazy game. I really could.
We're going to put down a little bet then, yeah? We're just like, I'm going to go and see how much the odds are for us to win 3-2.
I don't usually put down the bets. I'm not usually much of a, I already have enough vices as it is, Mia. So I kind of don't try to, get into it. But maybe I will. Maybe I will. I'll Venmo something over to Shawnee, maybe, or something like that. PayPal Shawnee, to give me a bet. But big up, Mia. Can you plug your channel for me as well, please?
Yep, Spurs Between the Lines. I do regular content. I've actually started doing lives on regularly now on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So there will be one tomorrow, but it is early because I'm up early. So I like to catch the early bird. So if you're an early bird like me, you can come and have a little chat with me. I'm going to be talking tomorrow about a bit more about what's happened with the reply, talking about the game a little bit, and I also did do a review of the preview of the Man City game. So, and you get to see my face in it. So if you really want to see my face, you can actually go and see it. It's when I'm here now, it's like I'm a bit shy, but on the camera, I went on the camera, so it's my first time I've actually properly shown my face. So if you do want to see what I look like, there we go. That's your exclusive to go over to my channel to go and see my face.
Show some love over on Mia's channel, please, everybody. And especially if you want to hear more of what she has to say on everything Spurs related, please go over and show her some support. And the march to 200 is so close as well, everybody. Don't
Yeah,
have
I'm
as
very
many in the chat
close.
today as we normally do to get you over, but everybody, every little subscribe helps. Let's get her over to 200, please.
Yeah, that does. And every like as well. So when you watch the videos, if you could like them and leave a comment, that's really good for the algorithm. And watch them for as long as you can tolerate me for, because again, that really does well for the algorithm. The watch time, it does really help. So yeah, if you could possibly do that for me, I would be really like grateful. And I do sound like Ellie because London ladies, that's what we sound like. I get told I sound like Peggy Mitchell from EastEnders. Get out of my pub. I've got a very London accent, and I didn't realise until I speak to other people and they say you sound so London. I'm like, do I? Apparently I do. So
Can't hide it. You can't hide it.
nope, I
Can't
can't
hide it.
hide my Londonness. So
Mm.
yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, me and Ellie do sound quite similar. Like I say, ladies from London.
I have the opposite of an East Coast accent, so to be fair, I know how you feel. I know how you feel. I'm a little bit kind of stick out like a sore thumb kind of a accent, at least for me
Yeah,
as
you
well.
do. Around where I live, it's very posh as well. They speak very posh, and they know
Mm,
us Londoners. They side eye me because they're like, "Yeah, we know you're from London. You're not from around
mm,
here."
mm.
So they
Well,
speak nicely. Where there's no, I
well,
don't. But you know,
we love you over here, Mia. We'll take everybody, take
thank
anybody,
you.
take all voices. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks for having your say. And I'll be seeing you soon. Hopefully it's not as
Yeah, I'll
long next
speak to you
time,
soon.
the next time I see you.
And hopefully after a win against Man City. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Mia. Appreciate it. Thanks for getting me started. See
No
you soon.
worries. See you soon. Bye.
Everybody show some love over on her channel, please. And also as well, let's get her over to 200 as quickly as she can, because she's doing me a huge favor. She did a huge service getting us started on the fan show today, everybody. But let's speak to the next guest of the evening. It is going to be the Queen Ellie Hoiberg. Let's see what she has to say. You there, Queen Ellie? Ellie, you there? Nope, maybe not. Let me know when you're there, Ellie. Or Mark, feel free to come on. I know I see you in the background too, Mark, if you want to come on. There he is. How are we,
Mate, hi.
Mark?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. It's a hectic week, let's be honest, Mark.
You
It's
just
everything
switch
from
off
the
the.
January transfer window to,
Oh,
ending and concluding to the board's response to the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. It's kind of a lot of different things to get stuck into. Let's be honest, Mark. Where do you
yeah.
want to go? What do you want to talk about?
Well, how should I put it? I mean, the one thing I suppose maybe to start, maybe say with the big game coming up with the City, we played them. We played them last time round. They thought they had our number, but this time, the squad is strengthened. I think my feeling is not just the squad that's strengthened, but the first team has strengthened. Once we've got Porro there, we've got Dan Zuma. Those two players on their own, whether they're going to start, whether they're going to come off the bench, I think it's likely they're both going to be involved, and I think that they will just not just individual positions, but I think they will lift the whole team. They will lift the squad.
I do you feel like with Porro coming into this game, is he going to be the change in personnel that we need probably to sort of kickstart this season as well? Could he transform this season? Do you think Pedro Porro, Mark? Could he? I
Oh, I
know
mean,
it's not the
yes,
center back that we needed, but maybe he could be
it's,
that super powered, transform type player that we had with Kulusevski and Bentancur.
oh yeah, exactly. I mean, so yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm sure, especially as we'll remember when Benson Kulo, when they came with a bit of a shadow with their Juve rejects. Sky Sports, BBC was like laughing at us. Who have Tottenham signed now? But they absolutely turned our season around. They were absolutely inspiring, and I think in terms of Porro and Danjuma, they could well be exactly the same. They could really just lift the positions and lift the squad. So I mean, I think that so I think they will be absolutely huge.
Yeah, What do you think, for Man City? Because last time we actually found ourselves 2-0 up, Mark. We were in hysteria, thinking that, we actually had it. I was a bit
I was
embarrassed
loving it,
even. I
mate.
sort of thought we had it sealed even like to a degree. Like it felt like, Antonio Conte, second half FC, it was all headed in the right direction. Second half FC did not turn up at all, Mark. It really did not. So
Yeah, yeah.
what do we think it's going to happen? Or do you feel like it's a basketball game? It could go any which direction, 3-2s, 4-3s. How do you see this? Is it going to be a crazy game, or is it going to be a bit more cagey, a bit more tactical?
Well, I think my feeling is it could be. I think my feeling is it could be a little bit of both in there. Both teams obviously going to be new positions, going to be new players. They're going to be feeling each other out for some of the time. But I think that both sides have got big guys going forward. They're both. I mean, uh, there will be goals. Whether it's going to be decided whose attack is stronger, or even not to look on the negative side, whose defence is going to be, whose defence is going to be a little bit more vulnerable, who's going to be weaker.
Mhm.
And my thing is, in terms of how to put it, I mean, in terms of let's say, with the first game, not only were they weak, Emerson scored. I mean, I was just seeing that with the watch long, this thing with the watch long, with the chat. We scored the first. I would say I would just love to see Conte Cam if Emerson scores. 2 minutes later, the geezer scored. I mean, that was just unreal. Not even to score, but to score against the league champions. I mean, come on.
What do you make of, speaking of Emerson, what do you make of Conte's decision as well as Spurs' decision to stick with Emerson and depart with Doherty? Doherty has been defeated and Emerson stays around. What do you make of that, Mark? Are you feeling for Doherty? Do you agree with the decision made? Where do you stand on it?
Well, I think in terms of the doc, I mean, he's been a tremendous servant. Obviously, he's had the good games, the bad games. Last season, he was on fire. The one thing I think that stopped Doherty, there was the injury when he was hit by this really bad tackle by Patty Cash. The Villa game, there's the tackle. Cash should have been sent off, should have been red carded for that. That was absolutely shocking because that ended his season. And I think to a certain extent, he's never been the same when he's tried to come back. But I think in terms of Doherty, bearing in mind the injuries and the age, I never thought we'd be able to get him out the door. So to get him out the door, plus, I mean, not just on a loan, but actually not as a loan, but actually really out the door. That was a huge plus.
Hmm. I actually think,
Yeah.
I actually feel like I sort of look at it where maybe we didn't benefit from getting rid of the players that we did last season, because I felt like last season, Mark, in the January window, we got rid of Ndombele, we got rid of Lo Celso. I think it was even Dele Alli too, right? We got rid of kind of a lot of sort of problem players in the dressing room. This season, I'm not sure if we exactly did that. Maybe because there weren't as many problem players around, but I feel like getting rid of Hill Messi, I'm not sure about that decision. I guess getting rid of Doherty sort of, was okay, but wasn't exactly, something that everybody expected. The Jedi leaving is a bit of a shame. That's for sure as well. You there, Mark?
Yeah, I'm there.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, the Jedi leaving, that was a shame as well. It's just, the departures maybe were not as the departures were not, maybe as good.
Oh,
I can hear myself in the background a tiny bit.
Yeah. So, as I say, in terms of the.
Oh, I don't know what's going on here.
Am I still there? Oh, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
It's fine.
But I can hear myself in the background a little bit, Mark.
Hang on, let me just stop that. So, how's that? Is that clear?
Let's see.
I've switched off had the iPad on as well, so that makes it easier with just one signal.
Here, you just keep talking, but I do kind of hear myself in the background a little bit, but you just keep going. Oh,
speaker. How's that?
Let's keep going. You take it away.
Yeah. I should be
all
clear.
Right, I think we're good. I think we're fixed.
Yeah. Cheers, myself. Yeah. So says, yeah, in terms of the loan with Gil Messi, what the guy needs, he needs physicality. He needs a British league. He needs really to go to a British club, either Premiership or up to Rangers or Celtic. Really say to build up his physicality. The move to Spain, obviously, it's a lifestyle choice. It's sunshine. You got the beach. The fans will love him. It's an easy game. It's a slow continental game. So I totally get as a lifestyle choice, but as a football choice, this obviously is a bit of a let's say how shall I put it? Not sure I should say a shadow over Gil Messi, but it shows, is his heart there for the football to build up to play for Tottenham, or is it really a stepping stone? He wants to go back to Spain. But the other side, you look at Spence, and Spence was offered at Madrid. He was offered at Atletico Madrid, a massive big club, but he realised he'd be on the bench. And to take that to a smaller club like France, to go to Rennes, which obviously is a much smaller club, for him to go to Rennes, which means it's a smaller club, less of the highlight, less of the whole, the marble and glass around him with the facilities there, but he will get game time and he will get games on the pitch. And that was a huge plus for Spence.
Derek Smith saying here, two players who need to up their game on Sunday, Lloris and Perisic. Unfortunately, they let the team down against City. We had some howlers from the center back, but I remember a lot of people said, Mark, that Perisic kind of sort of played a part in all of the goals that we conceded. Like he really didn't cover himself in any glory. Now we're playing Pedro Porro, potentially again, as well, or playing Pedro Porro as well as Perisic. Are we going to be a little bit too attack minded going into this game, maybe against Man City? Do we need more defensive, maybe players? Would you play Sessegnon instead of Perisic? Would you consider that?
Oof, well, it's
tough.
Well, it's a fair question. It's a tough call. I mean, the other thing, as I say, as I say with Perisic, says we all know, he's attack minded. He's great when he goes forward, but obviously with his age, he is vulnerable. He's vulnerable. He's vulnerable at the back to a big striker and a fast striker. So he is vulnerable. I mean, in terms of Cess, the other option is then, and it's probably a controversial one to say with the fans, is it Cess or is it Emerson? And I can imagine say with the fans, to have Emerson's name on the sheet, maybe wouldn't be the huge plus that they're aiming for. But in terms of let's say to be strong in the back, Emerson really, he's doing well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Emerson, has made more of a case to stick around than maybe the others at least, but. It's a tough one for me, Mark, because Perisic did get skinned a lot of times. I felt like in that Man City game, and he struggled. Can he learn from it? Maybe he can. He is an experienced player. He knows probably learn from mistakes, but it also could be the case that it's just maybe, too tough of an opposition for him where he's good going forward, but he's not the greatest defensively. And it's a difficult situation. Sessegnon, on the other hand, he hasn't impressed me going forward and he hasn't impressed me defensively either recently. So like, you're just sort of relying on Sessegnon maybe tapping into that old form from last season, but we haven't seen that version of Sessegnon at all this season. So it's a lot of headaches that Conte still has to make, but I am glad that he gets to pick now between Pedro Porro and Emerson. At least it's made a little bit better there. Do you go with Sonny, Kane, and Kulusevski? What's your front three for tomorrow or for Sunday, Mark?
Well, I mean, in terms of, let's say, fitness, is Richie still injured? I mean, has he got fitness, or is he like? I'm not sure with Richie. Is Richie strong enough for the bench? Even strong enough to?
We have like a fully fit squad now, according to Stellini. Richie, I think I think the injury he had wasn't related to the old injury. Lucas might even be available. Kulusevski is available. Bentancur is available. Looks like the whole gang is getting back.
Well, listen to that. Well, I think with Sonny, he is getting back to. He is improving. He's improving. He's getting back to fitness. In terms of, let's say, with Sonny or Richie, there's definitely space in 90 minutes to play both. The key thing, obviously, with Conte, so the bench. Will a guy use at the bench? You either starts Sonny, but definitely brings on Richie, let's say, for like the last half an hour, or changes up the mix and say, you know what, with City, we're going to frighten them. We're going to put Brazil's number 9 out there. And I think he's a big guy. He's fast. There'll be all the shit house. There'll be all the stuff going down. And I think he will really get the mix in at the City defence, because we know with City, they're they're strong going forward, but they're also a little bit like us. They're weak at the back.
I do think they're weak at the back, and it's always been Guardiola's kind of sort of kryptonite. Is that ball over the top, as well as also that Sonny running behind has always been his kryptonite. Speaking of Sonny, actually, he do we read too much into that Preston game, Mark? Like, were those 2 goals really just because of the opposition, or is Sonny maybe capable of turning it around starting now?
Well, it's a building block for Sonny. It's a fair point. Terms that say Preston, it's a smaller team, it's a weaker team, it's a weaker defence. But I think also with Sonny, there's different players out there, and he plays not just on form, but he plays on energy, and let's say how he feels when he's on form, when he's on fire, when his energy's there. He can build, and the crowd will get behind him. So, and obviously, in terms of City, they're a big team, the Premiership champions, but the game on Sunday, it's a home game. And in terms of, let's say, the fans, we just love Sonny. Sonny is not just in terms of, let's say, how he's been before. He is Mr. Tottenham. His DNA is there. Even when Harry went through the wobble with City, if you would or wouldn't sign, Sonny signed, and he backed us up. He backed up the fans. He backed up the club. So I think for the fans to show support for Sonny, especially at home, he will feed off that. So I think there's a huge something in terms of Sonny is a huge plus to play him for the home game. But as long as Pitchy definitely needs game time, not the last 5 or 10 minutes, not pissing around in the wind, mate. Well, that is just a little bit too weak. But I think in terms of, let's say, the game on Sunday, whether it's either going to be Conte there or a Stellini, and if it's a Stellini's there, whether I think with Stellini, I see got a little bit more freedom to say, you know what, we're going to use the bench. Whether he's got more freedom for the bench than Conte.
Do you think we're going to get similar antics on the touchline from Stellini that we get from Conte? Is he going to bring a similar sort of fire, a similar sort of energy, or is he going to be a bit more like a Nuno, where he's just kind of sitting there pensively the whole time? Do you think, Mark?
He's probably going to see which way the wind's blowing, see which way the wind is going, see which way the game's going. But I think with the fans, if the fans are there, and obviously they will be there, not just in numbers, but with support, with the tifo, and I think the one thing that will inspire Stellini, I'm sure you're bound to see Italian flags there. You're going to say, we love Conte, we love pasta. There's going to be all that stuff just flying around, and I think my feeling is that will not just have Conte in tears, that will have Stellini in tears, and he will be on his feet. And I think when Stellini's on his feet, not just the fans will be on their feet, the players will be on their feet.
Love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it, Mark. Anything else that you wanted to chat about, my friend? Anything that you feel like, you wanted to come on and have a say, or shall we leave it there?
I saw, especially just in the chat there flying past, say with Sarr. If Sarr's fit, because Sarr is really, Sarr really,
Yeah,
he was on.
Elbow.
If Sarr is that, I'd love to see obviously Sarr start the game, because Sarr was really on. I think as regards with City, if we go against them with Porro, Dan Zuma, with Sarr, they're not going to know what's hit them. We will absolutely run at them. I think there's a huge plus. Harry obviously well, let's say he loves the goal against City. He just loves it against them. And I think in terms of City, they probably think, oh, second half SC, they're going to laugh at us. But I think bearing in mind they went 2-0 down, they're going to be a little bit cagey. They're going to say, you know what, who's going to be there? Is it first half FC or second half SC? So I think, in terms of the game, as a huge plus. I mean, who knows? We could be 2-0 up. Emerson, hey mate, I scored last game. I've got your number, mate, and Mr. Pep. It's going to be not just who's going to score. I think we'll have to ask with Shawnee. We have to ask with Shawnee if he gets his money down. Which minute is he going to get? So the Emerson goal, is he going to score first half or second half?
I'd much rather second half FC turn up, Mark. I think we learned the lesson. Would you rather first half FC or second half FC turn up? We learned the lesson. I'd much rather be second half. I'd much rather sit through a torrid first half in order for the second half FC to turn up, because when first half FC turned up, Man City absolutely destroyed our second half team. So let's hope second half FC is there for Sunday.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, for sure.
Alrighty then.
It's a huge big. Let's say, in terms of the squad replacements, is a huge plus. There are big names. We all know we didn't get replacements in for Hugo or for Dyer, for Moonboats. Let's say for Moon Boots. So we are still going to be vulnerable at the back, but hopefully with the inspiration of the new players, I think this can inspire even some of the weaker members of the squad to raise their game. It's against City, it's against the Premier League champions, but we can do this. We need not just a draw, we got to win. And if we get the goals in, if Porro scores, Danjuma scores, Emerson scores, you know what? 3-2, 3 goals. That's the prediction. Come on, you Tottenham. Come on, you Spurs. In Conte we trust. Come on, you Spurs. Come on,
Tottenham. On, you Spurs. Come on, Mark.
Harris Army marches on.
The Harris Army marches on. 3-2 on Sunday, says Mark. I'm loving it. Big up, my man. 3 goals to the good. Big up, brother. I hope to speak to you soon. Thanks for coming on, Mark. Thanks for keeping me company.
Cheers, mate. Speak to you soon, mate. Thanks, mate.
See you soon, Mark. Love you. See you soon. Thanks. Have a good one. Everybody, show Mark some love in the chat, please. Absolutely love chatting with that guy. Always has good things to say. Puts a smile on my face, as per usual. He's a good Spurs fan. He's just always, thinking about the future. He's looking for the light around the corner. But I think, have another guest here, everybody. And then I'm going to put the link in the chat if anybody else wants to come on after Ellie. But might have to end it after that if no one else wants to come on and have their say. But let's speak to the Queen, Ellie.
Yay! Hello. Hey. I really love that. I really love him. I think he's brilliant. Mark is. We need him in the changing room to spur on our players. They won't dare lose. They won't dare lose. Like we'll have Stellini in the middle, Conte with his gallbladder on the right, and Mark on the left.
You want Mark for the hands in, you want Mark to do the passion speech, and then everybody puts their hands in afterwards, right? And then
I couldn't do it better myself. I'm telling you,
he's a good one for us. He's a good one. You want him in the crowd. You never fault that guy for not putting his heart into the team. That's for sure.
It's very true.
What do we want to speak about? Are you?
I wouldn't mind speaking about this Tottenham Hotspur Trust, the response
I have the questions
from the club.
Up here if you want to go through them, or do you just want to have a good chat about
fire away the questions, I'll answer them.
I kind of thought for me, Ellie, that the first question here, I know they had a long answer for it, but sometimes it's been kind of criticized, the questions that were asked, the answers that they gave were criticized. I kind of feel like this first question was sort of fair game. It was a bit open-ended, this first question, but I don't know, what did you make of the board's response? Because I thought they gave half an okay answer. I feel like they answered all the stuff they do off the pitch, but they didn't exactly answer anything having to do with on the pitch or anything having to do with success on the pitch. They seem to answer all the stuff about success off the pitch.
Yeah, well, they would, wouldn't they? Because they have been successful off the pitch, but
Yeah.
on the pitch we haven't been. And to say that we've just qualified for Europe, but we haven't won anything when we've qualified. So, you know, they can't measure that as success. All right, we might not have qualified for European competitions as much before, but what's the point of being in it if you're not going to win it? Arsenal are victims of that as well. They've qualified for Europe so many times, and they were up in arms against their manager and ousted him. But I mean, it's a cop out, isn't it? Really, it really is a cop out. They're not answering the true question, and the fact is, the supporters club are not happy with the lack of success on the pitch. We know we're successful off the pitch, and we know we've got Beyonce coming to make us even more richer. Come on,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, yeah, I just think it's a big cop-out. And if Bill Nicholson was alive, he would have slapped Daniel Levy round his pum-pum. Yeah, he would have slapped him one. Because, like, the game is about glory, right? The game is about winning trophies. You're not there to make up the numbers in Europe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If we win something this year and we win something in Europe, that'd be fabulous. But I can't see it with our defence. Our defence is not strong enough. I think we got enough to win the FA Cup, depending on who's going to stay in. We're just banking on Man City not getting to that final, because I don't want to play them in another final, because they had our number when we beat them 3-2 in the 1981 Cup, and they paid us back. And that was a bit of a drab game as well. But we've got to try and avoid them. I'm hoping Bristol City knock them out. Come on, Bristol City, do the job.
Are you hoping for Wrexham, or are you hoping for Sheffield for us, Ellie?
Oh, right. Then that is a double-barreled question. I'd rather have Wrexham just for the glory of beating Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, I like him as well, because he's very passionate, and he will fire up all those Wrexham fans as well. He'll get them going, and it'll make us play better. We're better away from home as well. We relax more into our game, and we've had our better performances away from home, especially in the second half, where we've recovered quite a few defeats. Right, so I'm hoping we get Wrexham, because it'll be a fairy tale for them as well. Yeah.
I feel like back to actually the questions. Maybe I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, Ellie, but on the boards, kind of answers, you just kind of made me think of something earlier where I feel like I know there are a lot of takeaways, believe me, a lot of takeaways, but my main takeaway from it is that the boards seem to compliment themselves, or they seem to defend the amount of money they have spent. They were kind of very happy to sort of defend that they have spent a lot of money. But I think then if you're going to defend the amount of money that you have spent, they could have been harsher on themselves about how they poorly spent the money. Like they could have looked at, the recruitment then. They did mention that the recruitment they've gotten wrong. And they said, we're doing they said we're doing a review over the whole department. We've made, a lot of, changes to that. And they said the recent windows, they think, reflect that they've made a big change in how they do the recruitment. But I just sort of felt like if you're going to say that you've spent a lot of money, and if you're going to say you've spent enough money, then you then should probably say we've spent the money incorrectly, or we spent the money poorly. But they kind of didn't do that. I think they sort of admitted that they spent the money poorly, but I don't think they did it convincingly enough, because if you want to justify how much money you spent, Ellie, I think you're welcome to it, but then you have to be more critical of where the money was actually spent in the first place.
Yeah, and like what they should have done, they should have got their house in order a lot more quickly. And also look at Newcastle, they go and get the Liverpool guy, and they've already made the League Cup final, and they're tearing it up in the league as well. They're making eyes open, Newcastle, with their attractive football as well, whereas we are damned. Like a lot of our fans don't like the style of play we're playing, all right, but it's keeping us there. It's keeping us there, but we're not convincing. Whereas Newcastle are very convincing, and because they got this guy, this statistician from Liverpool, And he's a marvelous guy. He looks at everything before he recruits a player. You know, he's looking at running stats, he's looking at mentality, he's looking at fitness, he's the whole across the board. He will scour the player to make sure that he's the right fit for the club. And he's done it at Liverpool. Now, I don't know why Liverpool have let him go, because they've gone backwards and Newcastle have gone flying upwards, haven't they? You know, so that was a bit stupid by Liverpool. And they don't normally make mistakes.
No.
They don't. Not with their recruitment. They're hot on their recruitment.
But that's how you would compare it, right, Ellie? Is that Liverpool are also a club that don't exactly always spend big bucks on anything.
No.
They kind of are a bit cheap, like ourselves. But
Yeah.
then that's where, like, that's what I mean. Like, that's where I think Spurs could have been a bit more critical of themselves, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you want to be one of those clubs that don't spend as much, then you have to get the recruitment department down to a T. Like, you have to get it down to an exact science, basically, where it's like, you know, for a fact that you have a better chance of, you know, getting it right than other clubs do. And you have a good track record for getting in the right player more so than other clubs. But that's not the case with Spurs. Like, they don't want to spend nearly as much as other clubs, but they also don't have the recruitment department as, you know, as down to a, you know, a perfect sort of science as other clubs do. So that's where it's frustrating. It's like, it's got to be kind of, ideally it's both. Ideally you have a lot of money and you have a great recruitment department. But usually it's kind of one or the other. Usually it's like you can basically outspend everybody and it doesn't really matter very much. Or you got to be like the Brentfords and the Liverpools and the Brightons, and you got to be smart and you got to get things right. And Spurs don't seem to do either, by the looks of things.
True. And even you throw in Leicester in the mix in that respect. All right, they've gone a bit downhill this season, but 5 seasons ago they were at top of their game and they were winning the league over us. But what I don't get is when they do their recruitment, it's not all it is. Stats are very important. We know this. You know, running stats, fitness, that sort of thing. But watching the player, you know, we had Mickey Hazard on our show. Right, on THFC Till I Die, and he said they were watching him for years before they signed him. For years. That's how you do it. You do your recruitment from a young age. From them, they even get them younger now than in Mickey Hazard's years. Like in those years, about 10, 11, 12, and then by the time you're 14, 15, you've signed your first professional forms. But that was the norm then. But now they're getting them at 5, 6 years old. Right, so but you can't tell whether a player's going to develop into a superstar at 5, 6, but by the time they're 13, 14, you should have a really solid idea of whether that player's going to progress. And even when they go into their teens and like early teens, 18, they should be Premiership ready. 18, 19, 20, they should be ready, right, at that age. But we haven't had anybody come from our academy who's been played. So why have we got our academy? Why have we got all these star players and we haven't blooded them? Like we're hearing rave reviews, absolutely rave reviews about Alfie Devine, but he's only had, I think, 1 first team start, and he's had 1 sort of cameo appearance where he scored against. In the FA Cup last season, I think it was, or the season before, I can't remember, but he scored a goal against was it Marley, the team from Liverpool? I can't remember their name, but it's something
Marine,
with M anyway. Marine, that's it.
Yeah.
I called him Marley. Sorry, Marine. My apologies. Right, but but
it was
that
was a bold-faced lie for me, Ellie, in that part of the statement where they said that they're what is it? They brought up the pathway that the young players have into the first team, and they say, like, you know, they always make it very, you know, easy, or, you know, they're proud of the pathway or whatever it is. Like, they basically said that they're proud of the way that they treat the young players at Spurs. And I just thought that's just a lie. Like, there's no way that you could, you know, really write that down and say that they've done a good job, because they've even watched their own. They've watched Madueke go to Chelsea. Like, that just speaks to, you know, mistakes being made, when it comes to how we've been treating the younger players. Like, clearly there is no pathway. There is no pathway into the first team.
I know. And then we go and sign a player called June Spoon something. I can't remember his name, but he's from Chelsea. He was like, they've let him go for a reason. They're not letting that youngster go.
But also, actually, I think they bought him in, Ellie, to improve the first team of the under 21s and the under 23s, because the under 21s and the under 23s, they're not doing so well, I believe. I think it was because of I think the coaching didn't seem to be too great, but also just the quality of the players that we have are not as good as other clubs. And
we've let so many go. That's why we've let lots of them go.
We've had to buy Chelsea, Southampton's, like other clubs as players to improve our own under 21 kids, because ours is so poor at the moment. And it's a bit confusing because Man City's, I know, is very good. Chelsea's has always been very good. Arsenal's are very good. So why is it that Spurs is so poor in comparison? Like, that's
it never used to be that way. We used to have a really good academy that developed a lot of good star players. Like, I mean, Glenn Hoddle was only 17 when he broke into the first team, and he scored his debut goal against Stoke City, I believe. Right. So yeah, we've produced star players like Mickey Hazard. All right, he wasn't straight into our academy, but he was only 14, 15 when he signed. So he grew up in our academy from a young age, but he wasn't there from 7 or 8 years old like they are now. But still, you'd think one player would come through. The only player we've actually seen that's come through is Tanganga, and he's fallen by the wayside because of injuries. You can tell that he's not fully fit. He can't cope with it. You can tell. And because when you saw him against Liverpool, you think this guy is the real deal in his debut, because he was bombing down that wing. He was confident. And now he's lost all his confidence and he dives in. He's scared. I think he's scared to get an injury, but the way he dives in, you think, no, he's not scared to get an injury.
I think
he does rush tackles, doesn't he?
No, yeah, he does, Ellie. I think with Tanganga, he's sort of forgotten how to defend by the looks of things. He sort of defends by fouling, really. Like, I'll be honest.
He does.
Like, he defends by basically fouling his opponent. Like, he can't seem to make a tackle without, like, physically manhandling them and, like, throwing them to the ground or anything. There's really no grace or style or kind of poise to it in the way that he takes the ball. Sometimes you see players like Vertonghen and exceptional center backs, they don't even touch sometimes the striker and they'll just nick it right off of them, and like
because they know they've got good timing and they know when to go in.
They read their movements, they read their body and how they're where the ball is and everything. It feels like Tanganga. It's just
he reads it all wrong.
Even I noticed every time he just grabs them, and just sort of like
he does.
He fouls way too much, I think. So I'm with
you. Yeah, true. But in terms of the board, I don't like what they said, and it's just a big cop out. And I feel us fans, right, we should really do something about this now, because the supporters trust, they represent their type of fans, but the real fans on the street, I'm not saying they're not real fans, but the real fans that are down there, that training ground, like Brian Daigle, he wants a change. He wants a change, and he's getting his troops, more and more troops are joining him, So hopefully we can see the best come out of this, and we'll actually compete in the transfer market. I want us to buy players that are like Porro. He's the type of player that we welcome with open arms, because he's a proven professional. He's only 23 and he's one of the best right wing backs in the world at the moment. So we've done well in that respect, but we need more. And we didn't address the centre back position. That was the worst part of the transfer window, because we can't go with Eric Dyer. We've seen how many mistakes the boy's made, and he won't get any better. In fact, he'll probably get worse, because we're going to be playing some top teams. We've still got a lot of top teams to play at home as well. And we've got Liverpool to play away. We've got Newcastle to play away, so we're going to be coming up unstuck if we don't have that defence shored up. Or, there's a guy in the youth team. I think his name's Patsowski, the tall guy.
Pascazzi, the Estonian.
He could be developed as a centre back because he's got the attributes. He's strong, he's tall, he's confident. What I saw of him, I liked him. I really did. Because Dyer doesn't recover quickly enough, nor does Longley.
No.
He's a bit too slow.
In fact, Ellie, I think even part of the reason why it's hard for us to realistically play a high line all the time against most teams is because we don't exactly have great center backs with Eric Dyer and Davies. But Hugo Lloris isn't really a sweeper keeper anymore either, right?
No.
He's not confident enough to rush out a goal and be able to sweep up in case, anything got, hit over the top, where they tried to run him behind, the defense. It's not like he's going to be there to sweep it up either. So you sort of have, it's like two issues to deal with at once. You have center backs that aren't good enough to play a high line, but you also have a goalkeeper that's not, there for a high line either.
And he's been making some right boo-boos this year, especially against Arsenal where he threw the ball in the net. I mean, is he getting paid or what?
It feels like, I mean, honestly,
sometimes you think, are these goalkeepers on a wedge? They say, right, throw the ball in the net and we'll pay you $100,000.
What do you
it's just dodgy. It's just dodgy the way he did it. Oh.
A lot of people have kind of said, but Forster, right, this like Fraser Forster, he's not even any better. I kind of have said, like, it's not really, doesn't matter if he's really any better. It's that he doesn't make the mistakes that you're talking about. Like, I think that's
he just plays it safe.
Like, you would trust, Ellie, any Premier League goalkeeper to save some of the things that Hugo just hasn't this season. Some of the mistakes Hugo has made this season, you wouldn't expect a Premier League goalkeeper to make those type of mistakes. So that's where it's like, I know we all put Hugo at this really high level, this really high pedestal, but we're kind of talking about the basics here. It feels like at certain times.
He's made a lot of basic mistakes, hasn't he? Yeah. And we can't keep on going on with those mistakes. So I think he will keep faith in Forster, I really do. I think he'll keep, because his distribution is good. He keeps it simple and he rolls the ball out sometimes, which is sometimes more accurate than kicking it. Because kicking it could get stuck in the grass. You can miskick it. And if you're not confident, like Hugo isn't, we've given like so many goals away where he's misplaced the kick as well. I remember that one for Sessegnon where he kicked it too high. Sessegnon jumped up to try and get it, but he's only a short guy. And then they nipped it off him and Almiron just went in and scored because Longley was turned his back on him as well.
I've even this season, Ellie, like I know some people have kind of said that a lot of the mistakes, the individual mistakes that we've made this season, part of it they'll kind of blame on Conte. Maybe so, with kind of the pressure the team has been put under. But I think if you really went back and looked at a lot of the mistakes that Spurs have made this season, it feels like we've made them under no pressure, like whatsoever, which I think says more to, the actual players than it does about the coaching or it does about the manager or anything, at least for me. And also the mistakes that Hugo has made, I think those are just on Hugo. Like those aren't really ever on the manager. I think that's sort of the nature of the goalkeeping position, right? Is that it's not like Conte can try to coach Hugo into being a better goalkeeper. Like that's not really his profession. That's not his job. It's up to Hugo to not make the mistakes that he's been making. So
true. At the end of the day, we have to sort out our house at the back. If we sort out the house at the back, we could have a very good second half of the season because we've got some really good additions. We've got Porro and Danjuma. Danjuma reminds me a bit of like Dembele. He's build, and he's the way he moves
tricky.
on the pitch.
Skills. He's got the skills as well. But do you think Porro can transform the season like how Kulusevski and Bentancur, right, Ellie, last season? They absolutely transformed our season. Can Porro do that?
I think so, because I've seen his highlight reels and I've seen him play, not live, but I've seen him play a lot of the games where I've watched the whole 90 minutes. And he was at White Hart Lane when I was there watching against Sporting. He was very good. He knows how to pass the ball. He knows how to take on a player. He's got a set of tricks which are really, really, really good, and he can beat his man. We need a player who can take on a player, and bring it to Kulu. you know, and link up with Kulu, link up with Bentancur on that on the right hand side, sorry, and then Højbjerg can do his mopping up, you know, let those three go forward with Kulu, and then if we play Kane and Sonny, I wouldn't play Sesto, I would stick with Perisic because his crossing is immaculate, you know, even though he hasn't been on top form, you know, but then I would play Davis instead of Longley against Man City because he'll give you more in terms of defensive grit.
Sure.
You know, whereas I don't know. The jury's out on Longley. I liked him at first because he's a very cultured player. He can pass the ball well. He's got a set of skills, the boys, but he's just too slow for the Premiership. He can't cope with the pacey players, and you need a bit of pace about you, especially at that left wing back.
I know what you're saying, Ellie. Where he that's a great word. He's a very cultured player with how good he is on the ball in comparison to the rest of our players. I feel like Longley is nothing spectacular, I'll be honest, Ellie. But at the same time, like he has, at least in my opinion, been better than the majority of the rest of the players we have. Like, and that sort of
in terms of his
speaks
football,
to how poor that defense is. It's, you know, the fact that Longley, you're not even that impressed by Longley. Yet he's been probably our best center back, bar Romero, maybe this season. Like, I think he's been better than Davies. I think he's been better than Dyer. I think he's been probably maybe a bit more consistent even than Romero. Like, that's how bad it is that Longley, someone who you're not even very convinced about, has actually weirdly been one of our better ones, I think, this season.
I think
so that's just me.
I think he's better in Europe because in Europe they play a very slower style getting up to the front. They don't pelt down like the Premiership. It's all hectic, right? So I think he copes with that a lot better. And against Marseille, he had his best game in that game because he did a brilliant goal as well. But you know what? I think it's a rotational system, isn't it? We've got Longley, Sessegnon and Davis to call on. Right, and then we've got Perisic who will play as a proper out-and-out left wing-back, but he can't do the defensive side as effectively. So you have to have someone behind him. You can't rely on a 34-year-old to go up and down and do the left wing-back position properly like it should be done.
He needs a good centre-back behind him. Yeah.
I think Longley's the best cultured player. He can pass the ball better. You know, Davis is not too clever with his passing. And he always checks as well when he's bombing down the wing. He's a bit like Sessegnon. He'll check. He won't take on his player. And his passing's a bit suspect. And Dyer is the worst of them all in terms of his passing. His passing is atrocious, honestly.
I think it was the other day. I forget which team we came up against. Might have been the Fulham match, I think, Ellie, where he had like one moment where completely under no pressure whatsoever, he just knocked it into the stands, knocked it into the cottage for no reason whatsoever. And
he did it at home in one match. I can't remember who we were playing, but it was a 4-yard pass and he passed it off the pitch. He had 2 players to hit as well, and he passed it off the pitch. And I thought, oh my God. And we've got him as our centre half, but we'll have to put up with him because he's like the blue-eyed boy at Spurs, isn't he? He is. They hardly drop him. When they dropped him, we lost.
What do you make of a Doherty situation, Ellie? Was that harsh, or do you really not care? You know, seeing him.
I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm glad to see the back of him because he's useless. He's like all the rest of our defenders, rubbish.
Yeah.
You know, it's only Romero who really you can put.
So are you left a little confused? Are you left a little confused because Spurs fans are kind of like, oh, this was too harsh. You know, they should have treated him better than that. Do you kind of like?
Oh,
you don't really, yeah.
No, just
no love lost.
Treat him harsh. Get him out. He didn't do anything for us, the gooner. You know, he's a gooner as well, so I don't feel any pity for him.
Yeah. I'm with you there. And also, I feel like it's not like we would have recouped much of a fee or anything. I think he was on the last year of his contract.
Then
like he's 31 years old. Like, I mean, Ellie, like, yeah, what would have been like $1 million or something? Like,
yeah, maybe 500,000.
That is not very much. You know, like,
nah.
So what else did you want to chat about, Ellie? Because I have your channel up here, but I feel like maybe there's a topic we might have missed or something like that.
Yeah, like I want to discuss the Harry Kane and Sonny situation. Like a lot of in terms of whether Sonny plays better without Kane. I think he does, because he's got more freedom of the pitch. But once they hit form, these two, I can't say that Sonny should be playing on his own without Kane. That wouldn't happen anyway. It's an unrealistic scenario. But I think Kane and Sonny, they will hit it off. They will get their mojo back in the second half of the season, starting with Man City, because Sonny likes a goal against Man City as well. I heard Mark say Kane likes a goal against them. So does Sonny. So yeah, let's see. Look, we got to hope that the players step up and get us into at least top 4 or a top 3 position. It's realistic. We can do it. We did it last year. The last 10 games, we were awesome, and we were battering everybody in our sights. And I think if we win a cup, I want to win a cup. If we can win both, that would be the cream on the cake. But I think the FA Cup is the most realistic one. And if we win the Champions League, though, how marvellous would that be? And you know what? We're in the last 16, so it's one of the 16 teams that are going to win it. And Real Madrid, come on, move over. Let Spurs win it. Come on, let the other Lily Whites win it.
Would you, Ellie, this season, right? With the FA Cup also being made a bit easier for us than usual, the pathway has been sort of, paved for us to a degree, more so than it often is in the FA Cup. Do you feel like we should put more of our eggs into that? I know we always want to put all of our eggs in the FA Cup basket, but there's more of a reason to do it, I think, this year than maybe other years, because they love top 4. The club prioritizes top 4. They make a big deal out of it. But I would say this year is more of a year to throw more of those eggs into the FA Cup basket, please.
Yeah, and I would say for Harry especially and Sonny, they deserve a trophy, these boys. They've played out of their skins for the last 7-8 seasons. They've been marvellous for us, and they need a reward. And if Harry Kane breaks that record, which is probably against Man City, he'll break it, right? But they deserve it, Jack, because they're such nice lads as well, off the pitch as well, and they deserve to win something. So I'm hoping that we win the FA Cup for them, because the FA Cup is a glorious cup. I mean, the last time I was there was 1991. Little did I know we weren't going to win it again for another 32 seasons. So, no, it's 31 seasons. It'll be 32 if we don't win it this year. So, no, come on. We've got to break the duck. Come on.
I love it.
We've got to break the duck.
You have to.
Yeah.
And also, I just this year, Ellie, like the Gooners, we got so used to finishing above them for so many seasons where I think what was it, like 6 or 7 years in a row, I think we were finishing in front of the Gooners, and now this season it's not looking like it
it's not looking likely unless they cock up again.
The top four was kind of fun because we knew that we were finishing above the Gooners to get top 4, right? And there was a bit of sort of novelty to it, a bit of kind of love to finishing ahead of them and getting in European competitions ahead of them and that sort of thing. But now that's not probably going to happen this year. So I'm just kind of like the novelty of top 4 is sort of lost on me now. Like I don't really care about it as much as I would. So this is why I'm kind of, like I'll be honest, like I do like top 4 and I do like putting, a lot of pressure into top 4, but this year I just don't have the energy for it. I just have much more energy. I know what you mean.
It's like you become immune to it.
Cup this year.
Yeah, because like I'll take a fifth finish in an FA Cup or a Champions League. I'll take that, because like being in the Champions League, if you win the Champions League, you're in it anyway the next year. So we got to win it. Got to be in it to win it. We're not there to make up numbers, and we've performed steadily. We've been performing better in the Champions League. All right, so we can take that as a momentum to get this team kick-started, because we have got the tools now. We've got the right wing back in position. We just needed to solidify that defence. If only we got that centre back, somebody to help the defence be more solid. We would have had the cream on the cake, but it never happened. And it's left a little bitter taste in my mouth, especially because I don't want us scoring 4 goals and losing 5-4, or scoring 3 goals and losing 4-3, because our defence has been crap. which they've proven to be this season, most of the season. Individual errors and collective errors. It's not just one of them, collective errors. And Romero, before we went to the World Cup, he was a bit suspect. Yeah, and he wasn't playing up to what he could. No. Slowly,
he was average. He was average.
Yeah, he was very average before and he was going missing as well on feigning injury, I think.
You're right.
Just to stay fit. Yeah, so I just want to see an improvement in the second half of the season.
From the whole team, from
the whole team collectively. You know, and that Porro, I like him. He's a ray of sunshine. He comes in speaking his Spanish. He's ready to go.
He's very camera. The opposite of camera shy. The opposite of camera shy. He was adorable.
He's lovely.
He's adorable.
And I like the whole Zorro business with the mask and everything. Yeah. You know,
he looks good on camera.
That's fantastic.
He seems to, I don't know, Ellie. Like we heard from the very beginning, he wanted to play for us. There's even photos of him, you know, like after one of his games for Sporting, he exchanged kits with one of our players, I believe.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think we maybe got a kid here that seems to, you know, of course he wants to be playing at the highest level possible, but it seems like, I don't know what it is. He seems to have a bit of a love for Spurs, or maybe a bit of a love for the Premier League, or whatever it is. He looks happy to be here by the looks of things. He looked adorable.
Why wouldn't you be happy? You've got the best striker, one of the best strikers in the world. You've got little Sonny, who's like, well, big Sonny now. He's 6 foot, isn't he? Right. You've got him in the club. You've got other players like Bentancur, Kulu. You're joining a very, very competent forward line. He just hasn't got to look back. Just don't look what the defence are doing, Porro. Get the ball and bring it forward. Don't let the other players get it off you. And then if you keep the ball, then they can't hurt us. You know. Yeah, I like him. He's very infectious. You know. And,
exactly, that's the right word. He's very infectious.
Let's have a good second half of the season and win a cup.
Come on, let's turn around. Well, Ellie, I put your link to your channel in the chat a few times. You're helping out Dermot tremendously. You help out me today by keeping me company today. Where can people find you, Ali?
Well, we're at THST till I die, at the Irish Hotspur as well, because this is my first home, my first love. At THFC till I die, we're doing a really good stream tomorrow. We're streaming the Spurs Man City FA Cup final that we won in 1981. So tune in, everybody. If you like to see silverware lifted by Steve Perriman, my favourite player. Well, he's my favourite player, but my hero is Glenn Hoddle, right? Because Steve Perriman, he's Mr. Captain Fantastic, you know.
The captain of all captains for Spurs.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player as well. Tottenham. Underrated as well. Yeah, and I just want us to progress in THFC till I die. We've got lots of different shows planned. We're just waiting for Dermatron's health to sort itself out. Hopefully, he won't have to have an operation. We're hoping maybe they could give him some meds and he'll be on the mend, you know. But we don't know. We've got to watch this space. I'll let you know through Twitter and Instagram and our socials how he's getting on. I'm due to phone him now, so yeah, I better get on the blower to old Dermatron, see how he is. Otherwise, he'll think, oh, well, he's forgotten me. No, he's a lovely lad. He's a lovely lad. He's a bit down because obviously he's got his health issues, but he's perking up a little bit over the last few days.
That's good.
Yeah. So tune in, everybody. THFC till I die. Watch out for the King, Queen, and the Godfather shows, which are really good.
Yes.
And then we got Dermot's statement that he made that he wanted to do, that he misses his Tottenham. That's going to be a fantastic show as well.
Yeah, I've heard parts of it. So well written. So well written.
Yeah. Okay, everybody.
All righty.
Come on, you Spurs. Thank you, Jack.
Spurs.
Brilliant,
see you soon,
as
Ellie.
Always. Take care.
Take care. Big up, Ellie. See you soon. Everybody, big up Ellie. Please show some support for her channel there in the chat, everybody, and show her some love, everybody. She definitely needs it over on THFC till I die. She's doing Dermot a huge service, and Dermot does us a huge service. And they're just great Spurs fans, just good eggs over there, over at THSC till I die. I think we're going to leave it there, everybody, in terms of the fan show. I do know we have all the sort of, usual business. Dave will be back for the pre-match build-up. He'll be leading the watch along as well for all that stuff Sunday. I'm not sure if something's coming out tomorrow. I might have like a bit of an Emerson versus Doherty thing come out tomorrow, but do stay tuned for this channel. Everybody, with any type of content that could be released, hit that like button, please, on your way out, everybody as well. But yeah, I think game day stuff coming Sunday. There could be something coming out tomorrow, at least on the channel as well. But do stay tuned for that one, everybody. Hit that like button. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for keeping me company. I'll be seeing you. Come on, you Spurs. And in Conte, I trust.
Everywhere we go.